My Karen sister thinks she owns my house. My siblings and I inherited money from our grandfather when he passed. Our dad was the administrator and he was not super strict and let us have access to it for practical things. I convinced my dad to let me have some of it early to buy a condo. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the price was amazing and very close to the university. After I bought it, my 2 best friends moved in with me and paid rent, and we lived there until we graduated grad school. I ended up getting married and moved away. I have rented it on and off, and family has lived there as well while attending university. I have 3 full siblings, and 2 blew through the money in a few years and made very poor decisions. When lockdown happened, my brother and sister-in-law went through some very hard times. They asked me if they could move into the condo until they could get back on their feet and save money. I agreed, but told them my rules. The master bedroom was mine, and I could show up at any time. I did not want to get any emails from the HOA. We were good. I'm now getting divorced and share 50-50 custody with my ex. I have the option of working remotely or going into the office. 1 week a month when my daughter is with her dad, I've been flying back home and staying at the condo. I have felt a strong desire to be with my friends and want to spend more time with my family. Here is where the issue is. I sometimes drop in last minute. On a whim, I catch a direct flight back home and just show up. This has started annoying my sister-in-law. She gets even more upset when I invite my friends over and we're drinking in the living room and acting like college kids again. It came to a head last weekend where she confronted me about how inconsiderate I was. She said it was rude not to give notice of when I was showing up and asked that I let her know a week in advance. She also said that she did not want my friends hanging out more than once a week and they needed to be gone by 11 p.m. Here is where I might be the jerk. At first I laughed, and then I got mad. I ripped into her and asked her who the heck she thought she was. I reminded her that I was the owner of the condo, and she had absolutely no authority to be laying out rules, especially when she was not paying for crap. I told her if she ever came at me like that again, I would toss her out on her butt, and if my brother felt the same way, he could leave with her. My brother confronted me and told me that yes, the place was mine, and they were guests, but as a courtesy, I could give them some notice, and having my friends over was also inconsiderate without notice. I told him no and no, and he called me a jerk. My friends and I are not loud. Sister-in-law is very religious and is upset because we drink and have very adult conversations that offend her. So Reddit, judge me. Am I the jerk? Edit for info. Brother and sister-in-law do not pay any of the bills. They are in my name. They have lived in the condo since April of 2020. I would have to serve them with a notice to vacate if they refuse to leave on their own. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or sister-in-law? Please let us know. Yowza, I think someone needs to get OP some milk. Entitled Mom tries to steal my pre-selected airline seat. So this happened about 2 years ago, but I just went on a flight recently and was reminded of it. My family had an event that we had to go to that was across the country. A lot of my family, my mom, dad, sister, and several aunts and uncles and cousins had already flown out the week before, but I had work and my daughter had preschool, so we stayed behind and were going to fly separately on the weekend. My aunt had a daughter that she couldn't bring when she went, so she asked that I bring her with me when I and my daughter flew. My aunt's daughter, Grace, was almost 2, but she was nonverbal so far, and my daughter, Elori, was a little over 3. I was 18. Since I was flying with 2 toddlers, I wanted to make sure that we had a row to ourselves. I was planning on having Elori in the window, Grace in the middle, and me in the aisle. So I went the slightly more expensive option of choosing pre-selected seats. We got to be in priority boarding, so we boarded before a lot of other passengers. We had checked our suitcases, so I just had my backpack with all the things I would need: jacket, food, toys, my electronics, and a diaper bag. So I had Grace strapped to my front, my backpack on my back, the diaper bag in one hand, and Elori's hand in my other. I was saddled up. I got on the plane with no fuss from the girls, but when I got to our designated seats, yep, you guessed it, an entitled mom and her son, probably about 6 or 7, were sitting in our row. So our convo went a little like this. Me: excuse me, these are our seats. We pre-selected them. Entitled Mom: I'm sorry, honey, but it's open seating, and I got here first. You can go find another seat. Me: no, this is my row. I pre-selected it online and paid extra for it. I showed her my ticket. Entitled Mom. Honey, that's not how it works on this airline, and unaccompanied minors need to fly next to the flight attendant anyways. Me, getting exasperated and exhausted, still holding a baby and a backpack. I'm an adult, and this is my daughter. Please move, or I will need to get the flight attendant. Go ahead, she will tell you the same thing. So, of course, I go get a flight attendant and explain the situation and show her my ticket. Enter flight attendant. Ma'am, she did in fact pre-select this row, so I'm gonna need you to move to another seat. Entitled Mom. Excuse me? She looks genuinely shocked. Flight attendant. Please move to another seat. We have plenty. Gestures to the back where there are literally still whole rows available. Entitled Mom. No, we got here first, and my son needs to be over the wing. Flight attendant looks slightly annoyed at this, but keeps her customer service voice. Why don't I help you find another seat? I'm sure your son will be fine. No, I'm staying in this seat because I got here first. At this point, Elori was getting antsy standing in one place, and flight attendant noticed. Sweetie, why don't you take a seat right there while I sort this out? I'll bring you an apple juice in a little bit. Elori sat down in a seat on the other side of the row, the one empty seat in the aisle of the plane that was filling up. Flight attendant tells Entitled Mom, we're going to have to remove you from the aircraft if you don't move to another seat. Entitled Mom finally gets up at this point and drags her kid behind her, pushing past us, saying angrily at me and the girls, you teenagers are so entitled. Flight attendant apologizes to me and helps me settle the girls and my things into our row. Flight attendant, wonderful job dealing, by the way. You seem like a very responsible big sister. Me, actually, the older one is my daughter. The younger is my cousin. Flight attendant smiles. Then you are a very good mother. I'll get you an apple juice for the kids. Just make sure you stow it before we take off. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to help you. Mailman wasn't trying to deliver my packages. I got revenge. For context, in my country, if your package gets sent through the National Post Service, you're basically done for. It takes 200 years and they never actually deliver it. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here they're supposed to ring the doorbell if the package doesn't fit the mailbox, and if you don't answer, they leave a notice and you have to go pick it up all the way at the post office. The problem is that my mailman doesn't even try to deliver them. He just leaves the notice without even ringing the doorbell and leaves. I've had to pick up nearly every package I've ordered because of that. Well, this time it was my last straw. I was obviously home because of lockdown. Suddenly I received a call that immediately hung up. It was so fast that my phone didn't even ring, just showed up as a missed call. No doorbell, no nothing. I suspected it was the mailman and ran to the door only to find him inside the truck, looking straight at me before driving off. Well, I was upset and I called the post office to file a complaint. I explained the situation and the lady told me that I couldn't file a complaint because they are only instructed to ring the doorbell and calling is optional, and I couldn't prove that he didn't ring it. At first, I just avoided using them again at all costs, but the other day I ordered something and chose a delivery company from the ones listed on the website. Apparently, that company hires the National Post Service to deliver for them here. When I found out, I basically stalked the tracking info for days. It was about 2 weeks late. Until one day, late at night, it said it had arrived in my country, which usually means that the next day it's going to be delivered. The next day, I woke up at 7 a.m. to check. My suspicions were correct. It said, out for delivery. I quickly grabbed something to eat, got in my car, and parked right outside of my house. Then I waited and waited and waited. 6 hours in total until I finally see the post truck pulling over. I grabbed my phone to record and watched as the mailman opened the door, already with a notice in his hand, and slid it inside my mailbox and turned around. I got out of the car and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" He didn't even look at me and said, "Just delivering packages, miss." Then I stood there as that jerk grabbed his phone to call me and quickly hung up. I smiled as I took my phone out of my pocket and sarcastically stated, "Oh, bummer. You didn't even give time to reach for the phone." He literally turned white. He couldn't even speak. I continued, "Now, can you give me my package, please?" He quickly opened the truck, almost tripped, and took out my package. "See, wasn't that easier than your whole scheme?" He finally manages to say, "Sorry, miss." I turned around and left. He probably thought he got lucky I didn't say anything else. But little did he know that I sent the video to the post office via email attached to my complaint. Well, let's just say I got a new mailman. This one tries to leave 1 second after ringing the doorbell, but at least he rings. Edit. 1. Everyone saying I should just install a camera. That would work, yes, but then he would leave with the package and I would have to go pick it up. I wanted my package that day. 2. For everyone saying I got him fired, and that's not something to brag about. Firstly, as much as it isn't his fault and he's just following orders, he was not nice or professional. He literally saw me at the door one time and drove away while looking at me. Secondly, we don't even know if he was actually fired. I might be wrong, but I think here the regular mail carriers are considered public employees, which means they are rarely fired, just transferred to a different job. Have you ever had any issues with the post office? If so, what happened? Please let us know. Oh, don't even get me started on the US Postal Service. Avoid them at all costs. Just a little height difference. Characters: Mom, Dad, and Uncle Ernie. The story. I can remember this event clearly. The family laughed about this for years. The year was 1985. Dad just brought home a brand new car, a 1985 Capri Classic. Mom and Dad picked it out together weeks ago, and he just picked it up from the dealership. We went for a drive so they could show off the new car to us kids and some close friends who were excited for my parents. Dad had an old half-ton he drove to work and back, so the car was left with Mom most days. Some days she drove it, but others she didn't need to go anywhere, so it just sat in the driveway. Now here I will mention there's a huge height difference between Mom and Dad. Dad was roughly 198 centimeters, 6'5", and Mom was roughly 154 centimeters, 5'2". Needless to say, the driver's seat needed to be moved for each of them. Dad got petty one day and pulled one of his little pranks on Mom. He took the car to work one day, which was not unusual if he didn't feel like driving his truck. While he had it at work, he welded the driver's seat where he felt comfortable and never said a thing to Mom. Probably 2 or 3 days later, Mom had to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that. When she got in the car and she tried adjusting the seat, it didn't budge. She came in the house and asked me to go look to see if I could figure out what was wrong. As soon as I looked at the track where the seat should slide, I see the weld. I pointed it out to Mom. When Mom got mad, she always looked like she just ate 30 lemons and she gets quiet. When she went quiet when I was a kid, I knew it was about to go down. She went into her bedroom and grabbed her pillows to put behind her so she could reach the pedals. By the time she got to the appointment, she had the most sour look on her face. We left the appointment and I thought we would be heading home, but we started in a different direction. I didn't dare ask where. I just sat back for the ride and shut my mouth. After a few kilometers, I realized we were heading to Uncle Ernie's place. This is where we brought Dad's work truck to get fixed and Mom's uncle. Mom got out of the car and showed Uncle Ernie where Dad welded the seat all the way back. He kind of giggled and asked what she wanted him to do about it. Mom told him to cut off the gas and brake pedals and weld something on them so her feet can reach the pedals with the seat all the way back. After some time, measurements, and welding, it was done and we went home. It wasn't until the next night when Dad was heading to the Legion like he did most nights. Within a minute, he came bursting through the doors, ripping about the pedals. Mom just looked at him with a look of amusement, which made him angrier. He asked her where she got the idea to mess around with a brand new car. Again, with the same look as before, she answered, "If you didn't weld the seat to your position, but I drive the car more and can't reach the pedals, what am I supposed to do? Now, if you want to take your truck tonight, you can take the car tomorrow and remove the welding from the seat first so it moves right. Then you can take the extensions off of the pedals." This is exactly what he did too. Do you think he would learn his lesson? Not my dad. He always said, "I am not stubborn, and I will fight to the death to prove it." Call the hotel directly, please. So last night, this guy comes in with his whole family. There are 7 of them. He was rude to begin with, but I asked for his name, ID, card, and confirmed that he had 2 reservations, one with a king bed and one with 2 queens. He said yes. They are there for 8 nights, which is insane for this property, as that will run you close to $3,000 for one room. He asks if they can have connecting rooms. I told him I don't have any more available, and unfortunately, the king bed I have is 1 floor down from the 2 queen rooms. This was our first problem. He started getting angry because they are a family and need to be next door or connecting. That always blows my mind too. Why would you not call and confirm these kinds of requests before checking in at 9 p.m. on a Friday night in a downtown hotel in a major city? Whatever. I told him we could move them sometime this week to be closer, but that these were the only rooms I have right now because we're sold out tonight and tomorrow. He said it was fine, so I processed both check-ins and handed him the keys for both rooms. Me. So this is the room with 2 queen beds, and this is the room with the king bed. Angry dad. I'm confused. You're saying this one has 2 beds and this one only has 1? Me. Yes, that is what you booked for your 2 reservations. Well, I called and you guys told me that both rooms would have a king and 2 queens in both rooms. Me. You called the front desk? Who did you speak to? We don't have any rooms like that. I don't know who the heck I talked to, but they confirmed that when I booked. That's the whole reason we came here. It was someone from your reservations. Me. So, you probably spoke to someone through corporate reservations, but unfortunately, they are not on our property. They don't always know what kinds of rooms we have and what's available. The front desk would have told you that we don't have that kind of room if you called us. Angry dad is getting angrier. They specifically told me that there would be 3 beds in each suite. Me. Well, you booked standard rooms, not a suite. However, even if you did book a suite, our largest ones only have 1 king bed in them. We don't have any rooms in this hotel that have multiple bedrooms. The most are 2 queen beds in 1 room. How the heck are we supposed to fit? Me. I can look and see if there's another room with 2 queen beds available. So we did have a 2 queen room available instead of the king, so I said they could have that room. Then the angry dad pulls up the website on his phone and he shoves it in my face going, "See? It says a king and 2 queens. Why does it say that if you don't have anything like that?" Me. Well, sir, that's just the tier. You can book a king or 2 queens. See? Angry dad looks shocked when I point to the word "or" on his screen. Well, why the heck did someone on the phone tell me otherwise? I could see on his face how dumb he felt, which only made him angrier. Me. Again, you spoke to someone who is not on the property. I always advise people to call the hotel directly because we do not have any rooms like that. I'm sorry you were misinformed. I need a manager here right now. This is ridiculous. Me. There is no manager on duty right now. You can come find someone to talk to in the morning, but unfortunately, a manager will not be able to get you the kind of rooms you're looking for. Nothing like that exists at this hotel. I gave him new keys for his 2 queen rooms, and he goes over to his wife to tell her what's happening. She then starts yelling at me, asking me what they're supposed to do. How are they all going to fit in 4 beds? I very calmly explain that I don't know how, but I can cancel their reservation with no penalty if they would like to go somewhere else. But that again, there's nothing I can do tonight other than give them these 2 rooms. They couldn't understand why I couldn't make 2 more reservations so that they could have 4 rooms. I told them again we are completely booked. I guess the concept of sold out wasn't clicking. I told them they could make 2 new reservations during the week, but that we are sold out tomorrow night too. So they stayed last night. I guess I will find out what happened when I go in today. One of their teenage sons came to me as the others walked away and thanked me for my help and apologized for his dad's behavior. Clever thief almost got away with $1,000 worth of merchandise. This happened 3 days ago, and I'm still surprised. I was working one of the registers on a pretty steady day. Not busy, but not slow as pond water either. While I rang up a few customers, I noticed 2 managers, the head cashiers, talking and looking both concerned and amused. When there weren't any customers waiting, I went to satisfy my curiosity when I noticed a cart stocked with lots of expensive power tools and batteries for said tools. My first thought was a customer forgot their wallet in their car and went to get it. Happens more often than you think. Or a customer went to grab something else before checking out. Well, no such thing. According to the head cashier, HC 20s female, who was watching self-checkout at the time, a male customer came up to scan those items. There was another customer doing the same while head cashier watched, but she noticed something while the guy was scanning things. Now, every time something is scanned for purchase at any register, an image of it appears on the screen. The guy appeared to be scanning the power tools and batteries, but the head cashier noticed everything he had scanned on the screen didn't match the products he had. The screen showed several lines of the same small bit of PVC pipe, which was worth about $1 and some change, and this guy didn't have any PVC piping in his cart whatsoever. The head cashier noticed this and quickly gathered the courage to properly approach the customer as he was nearly done. She told him, very professionally, there was an issue with what he was scanning because it didn't match the image on the screen. The customer feigned ignorance, while the head cashier proceeded to scan one of the items he already scanned, and sure enough, the correct item appeared on the screen with the correct triple-digit price tag. She proceeded to remove what he scanned already and scanned every item correctly. Suddenly, the customer is surprised and says he can't afford all that. The head cashier does the, "Do you want to save some money by signing up for the company credit card?" bit, to which he declines and leaves empty-handed. Turns out the guy had a little barcode sticker on his finger for PVC and scanned it to make it seem like he was scanning the other items. If the head cashier hadn't paid proper attention, the dude would have walked out of the store with almost $1,000 worth of merchandise. Other managers were informed of the incident, and the assistant store managers gave the head cashier props for handling the situation so well. We have some wayward youths working at our store who have had a bad habit of neglecting their duties in favor of socializing with each other. This scenario should serve as a learning experience for them and future employees to be more vigilant. As messed up as the situation was, I was impressed at the thief's clever approach. I guess I'm a sabotaging moron. The following events have been unfolding over the past 2 weeks and finally came to a head about 90 minutes ago. I work front desk for a small boutique hotel. We cater to an upscale clientele, and my direct supervisors are the owners of the property. 4th of July weekend, I check in one of my regular couples with our holiday weekend romance package, and for once had good news. When the gentleman booked the reservation, he requested their favorite room, 712, which is a junior suite. At the time, all junior suites were booked, so he booked a Premier King and asked if a junior suite became available, would I change room types for them and just leave him a voicemail to let him know. I confirmed the telephone number and asked that if he does not answer, do I have his permission to leave a detailed message with whoever answers or leave a voicemail. He responds that I am at complete and total liberty to do both, and if I just happen to lose the reservation for whoever has booked room 712, he'd appreciate it. And to my complete and utter shock, we received a few cancellations, including a junior suite, so I moved a few people around, locked them into 712, and left the voicemail with the good news. Told the couple the good news at check-in and asked him if he received the voicemail. He said he did not, but has been traveling for work and had not been in the office, so it will be waiting for him when he gets back to work after vacation. Thanked me for making the switch and calling. So off to the room they went. The following Friday, the owner called me into his office. With him in the office is a lawyer with a court order for security cam footage and receipts for certain dates. The lawyer is joined by his client. I guessed her to be in her late 50s, well-dressed with a smile that screams loving grandma. Boss man and lawyer leave me to pull up the receipts. Front desk, F&B, and minibar. They want it all as they go play with the security footage. As I print up each receipt, this poor lady looks sadder by the minute. Each page printed seems to break her heart. I offer her water or coffee. She asks if we have tea or a shot of whiskey. I oblige with both and a blueberry muffin. She then starts with her story. The lawyer is her divorce attorney, and if I didn't guess sooner, the gentleman I checked into room 712 was her husband, and the woman he checked in with at that time and all the times prior was not her. Her husband had been traveling for work for almost a month, was due back home in about a week. She was very upset he was gone for the holiday weekend, especially since her birthday was the 3rd. She said he promised to make it up to her. So that voicemail I left was on their home answering machine. She said she thought it was him surprising her. She packed a bag and waited for him to arrive to pick her up, and of course, he never did. She thought maybe the message was a mistake, so she called the hotel and asked for her husband's room, and sure enough, he picked up the phone in his room. She hung up without uttering a word. Then she researched the best, most expensive divorce attorneys in her area and was in that office first thing after the holiday weekend, and that was after she changed the locks on her house, changed banking passwords, and canceled a few credit cards. From what she told me, she and her husband were high school sweethearts. She worked 2 jobs while also taking classes at a local junior college after high school to pay for her husband to attend college all the way through to his master's, was a stay-at-home mom for their 3 kids so he could concentrate on his career. However, before they married, she asked for an ironclad prenup. She had heard so many horror stories of men becoming successful and cheating on their wives, leaving them for their secretaries, taking the home and family income with them. and she said she was not going to be one of those abandoned wives. So in their prenup, there was an infidelity clause. Proven infidelity means she got the house, the boat, the summer house, half his 401k, and a monthly alimony payment. And between the room charges, F&B receipts, and certain things purchased from the minibar, I think she has proven that beyond a reasonable doubt. And about 90 minutes ago, I answered the phone to be called every name you can think of, telling me I was going to be fired, that he was going to sue the hotel because I'm too big of an idiot to call a correct phone number. Turns out, the cheating jerk accidentally gave me permission to confirm the room upgrade to the wrong telephone number. Thought he gave his office number, and instead he gave his home telephone. This jerk went so far as to say we looked up his house telephone number just to sabotage him. That was until Boss Man pulled up the recording of the telephone call where he made the reservation, where I confirmed the telephone number, which was in fact his home telephone number, followed by his absolute consent to leave a detailed message. After listening to said recording, the cheating jerk uttered a single, "Oh," and hung up on us. Guess he came home and found the locks changed. You want your coffee hot? Even hotter? How about we curdle the milk for you? This happened a few years ago when I was first starting in hospitality, but this was the best intro I ever got to what hospitality is really like. It was the afternoon, and my boss was already in a cranky mood because he was teaching a 17-year-old how to use the coffee machine, which would drive anyone mad. A woman came in and ordered a dine-in coffee extra hot. He let me do the coffee while he went out back, and I made the milk to 75 degrees Celsius. For those who don't know, milk is steamed to around 65 Celsius, 149 degrees Fahrenheit, so this should have been fine. She came back. I asked for extra hot, and this is lukewarm at best. I'm brand new at this, so my boss assumes I've made a mistake. I remake the coffee, showing him it's now at 80 degrees Celsius, 176 degrees Fahrenheit. He tried a bit, edit, by pouring the milk into a separate first, burned his mouth, and confirmed the thermometer was fine. I took it out to her and said, "Sorry," and came back into a life lesson from my boss, saying that customers can sometimes tell when someone is new, so they prey on them. Again, the woman comes back. I come here all the time, and I have never been so disappointed, or something to that effect, and storms back to her table. My boss and I are really confused at this point. He remakes it again. She brings it back again and begins to yell at me full Karen style. My boss has gone to the toilet at this point. I'm 17, brand new to customer-facing jobs, and trembling and crying. Finally, my boss walks up, yanks the cup from her hand, puts it under the steam wand, and turns it on. Milk is boiling over the cup, all over the countertop and onto the floor. He just stares at her. He hands it back to her without ever breaking eye contact. Milk curdled, half a cup of liquid missing, and says, "There, it's hot. I made sure of it." She was mortified. I was horrified. She sat at her table too stunned to complain and drank the coffee in peace. He went into the kitchen to tell the chef, and they cracked up laughing. That boss was the best and worst boss I've ever had. One time we were overbooked and had to cancel the most recent reservation. They called him a name, so he set up their tablecloth and utensils on the ground outside the restaurant and sent them a picture confirming their booking. If you lie about the number of people in your party to get set faster, you deserve to be kicked out. Today I worked a double, server in the morning and expo for the evening shift. The guy that was taking over my section agreed to take a 17 top as I was finishing cleaning my section and I began helping him set up. We're all starting to walk over and I head to the back, clock out, and then back in and put on my apron and get to work pulling food. Next thing I know, the server that took over for me is coming back and asking me how many the host said was in the party. I confirm it was 17, and he tells me that around 28 people are all sitting themselves in closed and reserved tables with them talking about more people who are on the way. When my manager makes her way over to the party, she asks them why they lied about the amount of people. They make up some crappy excuse saying, "Well, there were 17 people here, but it's gonna be around 32 total." She told them that they couldn't order their food until the majority of the screen was cleared so that the kitchen wouldn't be swamped and that the rest of the people had to sit in different sections because one server couldn't handle that many people because they lied. It was for a girl's 17th birthday party and the mom got very mad and started yelling at my manager, saying this wasn't a big deal and other people could wait because it was her daughter's birthday. My manager told them that they were being loud and disturbing the other guests and that they would need to leave if they kept it up. Suddenly, the whole party got loud, and there was so much arguing and yelling, so my manager told them to leave. At first they stayed and kept calling other servers to get them drinks and take their order, but my manager told them to leave or they'd call the police. They then decided to cut the cake and obnoxiously yell the happy birthday song and like 6 different versions for 10 minutes. When my manager walks over and informs them that the police are on their way, they start threatening her and telling her and other staff members to meet them outside. Once they hear the sirens, they all take off like a bat out of heck. Funny thing was, it was actually officers going somewhere else for a different call. When the police do get here and talk to the manager and get the phone number of one of the members that had given it at the host's stand and watch the tapes, hopefully they get some legal consequences. My Karen sister is pregnant with my ex and I'm supposed to be excited. Okay, so it's not that I, female 26, can't stand kids, but you'd think that if you spoke to my family. My parents and the rest of my family are going insane over my sister, Sophia's, pregnancy. It's dominating every discussion and every family get-together. I won't lie, this has been getting to me. Like, I'm not saying it's not a blessing, but oh my goodness, I'm bored of talking about baby showers, baby names, clothes, etc. So I just kind of turn off when it comes up now. I'm trying to be polite, but it's especially upsetting because the father of my future nephew or niece is the guy that I was, and might still be, I don't know anymore, really in love with. Luke was actually someone I dated first, back in my final year of university. Luke is also from my home city too, but we hadn't met prior. We dated a few months before he decided that we worked better as friends. This hurt, but I pushed through it, and we got a good friendship out of it. So when we graduated, we both went back home, and he spent pretty much the entire summer at ours because he has a difficult relationship with his father. That's when Luke and Sophia got together. Yet, despite all this history between Luke and I, no one in my family seems to think this whole experience might be a little strange for me. I won't lie, when I saw him kissing my sister, drunk, at a party, I kinda thought, you jerk, but it's okay, it won't last. Safe to say, it's lasted. But whatever, you know? You have to get over stuff like this, and I am, but I'm not a fountain of enthusiasm over it either. The drama comes when my mom asked me if I could plan the baby shower, and I told her no, basically because I personally disagree with them trying to hold one during lockdown anyway, that I have a life outside of this whole thing and I'm busy. I didn't say it, but it also feels weird for me to be so involved with my feelings being the mess that they are. I just told her that she could do it if she wanted. It's her grandchild, and that makes more sense than me doing it. But my mom got upset with me and my tone and accused me of being unsupportive of my sister's happiness this whole time, and even being selfish for not wanting to be a part of it more. And I wasn't going to take that because I've tried really hard to be mature over this. I told her she was being overbearing with it, and not everyone has to do everything she wants all the time, and basically told her off for making a drama out of nothing. But now she's upset with me, and I'm starting to feel bad. Am I the jerk? My crazy ex showed up at the restaurant tonight and got arrested. I had a crazy partner well over a year ago. We broke up, restraining order, stopped hearing from him. Rumor was he had gone to jail for something else. That part of my life was over and done with. Until tonight, when he showed up at my restaurant. He's quite a bit older than me, so had the advantage when I was in a bad place. It took a long time to convince myself he was 100% at fault. He showed up right in the middle of the dinner rush. Of course, he had to pick a night when a large group of girls I know from school were at a centrally located table, and the place isn't even that big to begin with. I spotted him right away. I think I saw him subconsciously before I even fully realized it because something felt chillingly off a few minutes before I first spotted him. We're still cutting back on staff to recoup lost income during lockdown, so I was the only one out on the floor. At first, I hoped maybe it was a coincidence that he didn't realize I worked there, so he would just eat and leave. But no, he was drunkenly asking random patrons where to find me by name almost immediately. I wanted so desperately to ignore it and have him just leave of his own accord because these girls from school were right there and I did not want to be part of a big scene. But it became evident that he was not lucid, maybe something stronger than just the booze, and his behavior was escalating fast, could not be ignored. I went back and let the owner know what was going on, but just didn't feel totally comfortable sharing the whole backstory with him. When things first turned sour in the relationship, news got out to my family and friends before I was ready to discuss it and that fiasco is still an open sore. So I just told the owner a guy I used to know has shown up drunk and belligerent, and I know him to be violent, so I was going to call the police. The owner said no problem. He would call and even offered to tag me out and handle my tables until the guy left. But I didn't want to let this guy chase me out of my own job or stop me from living my life ever again, even just for a few minutes. And our owner is a much older guy and not so great health. The restaurant is one of the only places his wife lets him go after lockdown, and even still, he has to stay in his office when it's busy. I kept working, and the owner came and sat at the bar, keeping an eye out on my ex. He was calling out my name and saying some pretty rude things and trying to get within arm's reach. The owner is pretty paternal towards me. I've worked in this place a long time, and we're a pretty small staff, so he wasted no time chesting up to this guy and telling him, "Hey, the police have already been called. Do yourself a favor and get out." But my ex took that as a challenge and shoved this brittle old man hard. Patrons stepped in right away because it was so obviously not a fair fight between this big young guy and a little old man. But my ex can be scary, and understandably, no one was considering physically confronting him or getting between him and the owner or anything like that, so he was undeterred. He started to scream at me, demanding I leave with him, and he tried to run at me. The line cooks heard the commotion going on, and a couple came out to see what the trouble was. Most of our cooks are scrappy, but small, and I think despite their egos, they knew from one look they'd need reinforcements. It had only been about 5 to 10 minutes since we'd called the police, and in this busy city area, it takes them 20 minutes minimum to respond to anything that isn't imminently life-threatening. And all the owner had known to tell 911 at the time he called was we had a drunk and belligerent patron who might become violent. So we were definitely low on the priorities list. The line cooks went back and got one of my only real sort of work friends, coincidentally also the biggest guy on staff, Lenny. Lenny moonlights with an industrial moving company, so stays in superb shape, and is also super heavy, so he's become kind of our de facto security ever since everyone forgot how to act in a restaurant during lockdown. I really don't know too much about where he comes from, but I know it's very difficult to rattle him. So Lenny comes out and quickly assesses the situation. Someone tells him what my ex did to our poor sweet owner, and Lenny wastes no time. He tells this guy, "You're leaving. You're leaving on your own, or," with the silence implying what the alternative was. At this time, all Lenny knew was some drunk guy showed up and shoved our boss, who we're all fond of. So my ex told him some slurred drunken crap I couldn't really understand, but it was clear from his tone that it was not complimentary. Lenny went up to escort him out, and my ex freaks out and tries to break the nearest glass in reach to use it as a weapon. Fortunately, the nearest glassware was a thick beer mug, and he couldn't break it. Lenny shrugged this off as a sloppy drunk overestimating himself and tried to go in and get him in some kind of an armbar, but the owner warned him. "Hold off. Tamira says he gets violent. Be careful." Lenny didn't know who this was yet, so he was like, "This guy put his hands on her?" and was ready to charge him. But the owner's like, No, it's her old boyfriend." Lenny doesn't know the whole story with my ex. No one at work does, but he does know more than anyone else there, so instantly put together who he was dealing with. Without even hesitating, Lenny swung at him like a piñata. My ex's lights were out. He dropped onto the floor. A couple of patrons who had wanted to get involved but didn't see an opening were emboldened to step in now that my ex was unconscious and got on top of him to make sure he wouldn't be able to leap back up when he regained consciousness, which is good because he was back almost immediately. Still groggy, but more than able to have gotten up and retaliated had these men not stepped in. Someone else was behind the bar looking for something they could use to tie his hands together with. He found a roll of packing tape, and right in the nick of time, because my ex was quickly getting his strength back and really fighting the guys restraining him. Lenny wanted to go launch back in on him, but the owner was talking him down, insisting it wasn't worth it. The Good Samaritans were trying to tape up his hands and feet, but the roll was nearly out, so it wasn't doing much. I was watching the whole situation unfold from behind the bar, just mesmerized and paralyzed with fear, almost like an out-of-body experience. Because it sounds like a long time when describing it, but at real-life speed, this entire encounter from the time the owner came out to confront him couldn't have been more than 3 or 5 minutes. The police got there not too long after they had tried to tape him. It took 3 people to hold him down, one of whom got socked in the process, but they kept him secured until the cops got there. The police arrested him. My restraining order expired a year after it was granted, but I'm guessing they got him for the assaults or the disorderly conduct or something. And as they were cuffing him and going through the whole process, he was screaming that someone had assaulted him and he should be arrested as well. He was visibly injured, so the cops couldn't ignore that. They asked who had assaulted him, and he pointed at Lenny. One of the patrons who had helped restrain my ex started to speak up, saying, No, look, he did it in self-defense. This man was out of control. But his buddy cut him off and basically said, This guy was banged up when he walked in. I've been here the whole time and I didn't see anything. Then his friend, who was initially offering Lenny a cover of self-defense, realized the play and backtracked, saying, Yeah, we restrained him to defend ourselves, but nobody actually hit him. That other guy just works here. Which was a relief, because Lenny is a gentle giant, but he's also kind of a mystery, so for all I know, he has priors that would have made proving self-defense difficult. The police dragged my ex out and took him in. I went home at that point, but I learned from the owner at the end of service that they also impounded the motorcycle he showed up on. That was a nice bonus. So it was all very scary. I'm glad to know my coworkers and customers have my back, but I still think I'll take a couple days off. Ultimately, just feeling grateful that I'm finally in a place where the good people in my life far outnumber the bad. Have you ever had to deal with a crazy ex? If so, what did you do about them? Please let us know. I would just sick Reddit boy on them. One bop with that big ol' head of his and it's lights out, boyo. Entitled mom complains about hotel room, not realizing her husband had cheaped out. One day in January, I had a phone call. A man wanting to book a room for June. Quite far in advance. However, he wants to book for a Saturday night when there's an event in town, so we had only 2 rooms left. The cheapest room in the hotel, room 8. It's a tiny room with only a small double bed and a bathtub and no shower, 80 pounds per night. The most expensive room in the hotel, room 7. It's very spacious with a king-size bed, a shower, and a jacuzzi-style tub, 120 pounds per night. So I told the man that we had only these 2 rooms left. Me. We have room 8 available, which is 80 pounds per night, or room 7, which is 120 pounds per night. Man. I think we had better have room 8. Me. Okay, but just to let you know, the reason room 8 is cheaper is because it's quite small. The bed is only a small double, and there's only a bath, no shower. Is that okay with you? Man. Yes, that'll have to do. I'm not paying 120 pounds a night. That's extortionate. So I booked him and his wife in for room 8. Months later, I had completely forgotten about all of this. I'm working the afternoon shift one day when a man and his wife check into room 8. About 10 minutes after I had checked them in, they storm downstairs to the front desk and don't look happy at all. The wife starts going off on me about how the room is tiny, the bed is tiny, and there's not even a shower. This is ridiculous. It's not what she expected at all. The man is nodding along fervently behind her, saying that it's unacceptable. He wants a better room for his lovely wife. She deserves better than this, etc. Me. I'm so sorry you're unsatisfied. Did you book over the phone? Him. Yes. Me. Okay, I'm not sure who booked you in, but all of our staff know that when they book a guest into room 8, they have to explain that it's a small room with only a bath. Did they not explain that to you? Him shouting. No, they didn't. I asked for a superior room. Only the best for my wife. Not this pathetic little room. I can't believe you put us in here. It's just not acceptable. We deserve a discount. Yada yada yada. Unfortunately, by this point, all the other rooms were fully booked, so they had no choice but to stay in room 8. They opted to stay because all of the other hotels in town were full, but they were both fuming at me. They went back up to their rooms, and I went back into the office and went on the booking system. I looked at the booking and found the note that I had made months ago. That's when it all came flooding back to me. When they came down for dinner, I had the pleasure of serving them at the bar. They still didn't look happy. Me. I've had a look through our records, and I was the one who booked your room back in January. Him. Oh, did you? Me. Yes, I just found the note I made on your booking. At the time, I offered you our basic room or our luxury room because they were the only 2 available. Do you remember that, sir? Him. Silence. Me. I explained to you that room 8 was quite small and had no shower, whereas room 7 was spacious with a king-size bed, a shower, and a jacuzzi bath. But you specifically chose the basic room over our luxury room. You said you weren't willing to pay the extra 40 pounds. You called it extortionate. Do you remember now? Him and his wife are both silent, but the wife is staring daggers at her husband. Clearly, the man has been telling me off to his wife, claiming that he asked for a luxury room when really he cheaped out on purpose. I leave the bar to go and do something else after serving them, and I can hear her chewing him out all the way over from the office. When I returned to serve them their food, she was as sweet as pie to me and apologetic. He didn't say another word to me for their entire visit. He was definitely in the doghouse. Justice. Edit. To all the people insinuating I'm a horrible person for ruining this guest's experience by not letting him walk all over me, kindly sit and swivel. I'm a human, not a doormat. He messed up his own day by lying to his wife and blaming me. Throw more fuel on the fire? Got it. When I was younger, my cousins and I would always go and hang out at each other's places. All of our parents were in very rural areas. To give you an idea of how rural, our nearest neighbor was over a mile away. For my cousin, this was elevated to about 10 miles. We did what any other teens would do in the woods, whatever we wanted to. For this story, I was at my cousin's place and we were having a bonfire. It was a little damp as it had just rained, but his dad was fairly stubborn and had decided that he was going to burn some brush regardless of how long it was going to take him, and that we, my cousin and I, were just there to help him. Neither of us wanted to be out there, but my uncle insisted that we couldn't do anything else until all the brush was burned, and we helped him put away all of his equipment, chainsaw, log splitter, etc. He tried to start the fire, and after about 30 minutes, finally got it to start. We tended the fire and got it to where it wasn't going to go out before he decided to leave us in charge before going to get some more brush. To keep the fire manageable, we had the foresight to separate all of the brush in that area into multiple separate piles, no bigger than about 2 feet high and about 3 feet wide. As he didn't want the fire to go out, he told us that if it started to burn down, to add more fuel to the fire to keep it going. As he walked away, my cousin eyed the 10-gallon red plastic container full of gasoline before returning a wicked little grin at me. I just smiled back because naive little me had no clue what he was thinking. Malicious compliance. After a little while, the fire had burned down a little to where we could add more branches, but instead, my cousin grabbed the whole canister of gas and chucked it, more like dropped it, into the middle of the fire. I stared wide-eyed as my cousin came back and said, "We should back up." Me, "What are you, cousin?" He said to add more fuel, so I did. I looked at the canister, still sealed, and watched as the flames danced as they ignited the residual gasoline around the pour spot. Part of me thought, I should pull that out, but another part of me thought, this is going to be awesome. As I tried to figure out what to do, I heard the screen door to the house slam shut and realized my cousin had left me. I thought, oh no, if my uncle comes back, he's going to blame me for this. I didn't have to think about it for long. I heard the screen door slam again, and my cousin emerged from the house with his .22. He walked up next to me, aimed at the canister, and said, "This is going to be amazing." The bullet flew and pierced the canister on the highest part of it to allow the fumes to escape. For those who have never seen a fireball that comes from an exploding canister of gasoline, it is absolutely glorious for those who are standing back far enough, which we were not. I was only able to watch for a very minimal amount of time before the heat and force of the blast caused me to step back and trip over the chainsaw and land smack on my back in a pile of brush. My cousin ended up tripping and rolling down the hill about 30 feet before he ended up in a lake at the bottom. It was hard to tell how high the fireball made it, but it was at least 100 feet, because no sooner did my cousin drag his soaking wet self back up to the top of the hill than his dad, my uncle, flew down the little trail on the quad screaming at us. Uncle, "What the heck was that?" Cousin, "I threw on more fuel like you told me to," pointing to the exploded and still on fire shrapnel that used to be the gasoline canister. Uncle, "I didn't tell you to use gasoline." Cousin, "You said fuel. I used fuel." Uncle, "Get the heck out of here, both of you." So we went inside. My cousin changed. I pulled the prickles out of my clothes and we started playing video games. Apparently, my uncle had called my grandparents to come get me though, because no longer than an hour had passed after we blew up the fire, then they showed up to take me home. On the way home, my grandpa asked how it was. I said cool, and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to do that at his place. Fallout. I was never allowed back over to their house ever again. Have you ever done something really stupid that turned out to be really fun? Please let us know. pool guy only wants to maintain the water? Fine, I'll give you water to maintain. So my fiance and I have a pool company that comes to our house once a week. He happens to be related to my fiance's best friend, but we still pay him his rate because we wanted to support his business. He's been maintaining our pool for, I want to say, a little over a year now, and we haven't had any issues. He actually helped us get the parts we needed to fix a lot of things in our pool for just above at cost, and he's been an all-around awesome guy. I'm not sure what's changed, but the last couple of months, I've noticed if I don't sit outside and converse with him, he generally will come in, skim the pool, empty the basket, throw some chlorine tabs in the float, and leave in a matter of minutes. And this would be fine. However, now that we're getting deeper into the hot summer, we've noticed a slow growth of black algae growing in some of the cracks and along the tile. Granted, our pool is a little on the older side and is definitely overdue for a resurfacing, but the algae can easily be scrubbed off when it starts to get noticed. You would think that the pool guy would do this at some point. He is not. I've noticed these last couple of months, he's been doing the absolute bare minimum to maintain the water. And because of the algae, by the 6th day after, the pool is already starting to get green and cloudy. And then he just puts more chlorine in it to clear the water, and then goes on his way. Well, my daughter's birthday is coming up soon, and we intend to have a pool party. But even at its clearest, the pool had so much black algae built up that neither of the kids even want to swim in it anymore. So with 2 more pool guy days to go before the party, I decide the day beforehand to scrub the absolute heck out of the tiles, the walls, and the cracks, which lifts it all to the surface and floats it to the water. About 30 minutes in, the water is so green, gross, and cloudy, you can't even see the bottom. By the next day, which was yesterday when he was scheduled to come do his weekly drop-by, the pool almost looked like a swamp. I watched him through the window when he arrived and saw the absolute disappointment as he shook his head and began to skim the surface, which I had already done, so there wasn't much, and then proceeded to dump in the chemicals. The amount of different chemicals I watched him pour in the water cost him more than what we pay him for the whole month. And now here I am the next morning, and I'm sitting happily beside the clear pool, drinking my coffee, planning where I'm going to put the decorations for the party. Am I the jerk for being rude and mean at a wedding and leaving early? I was asked to be a member of the wedding party. Despite this, I was the only person, not only in the wedding party, but also at the ceremony, who wasn't allowed to have a +1. This was an outdoor wedding with unlimited seating, and these people don't give a hoot about lockdown, so it wasn't about that. I was told it was because my relationship wasn't serious enough, despite us being together for a year. That only engaged or married couples were invited, and that they didn't want some random guy in their wedding pictures, who I might not even be with later in the future. They don't want to have to look at some random guy in their pictures, even though he wouldn't have been in any of the posed pictures at all, maybe just in the background of crowd shots. There have been no conflicts between them and my boyfriend, and he's a nice and mild-mannered guy who gets along with everyone, so I don't think it was about him personally. I get to the ceremony and find out that literally everyone has a +1, not just married couples, but there are couples there who have been dating for less time than me. This is when I started feeling surly. I smiled and played my part during the ceremony, but inside I was very surly and angry. We then got to the reception, which had way more people than the ceremony. This is where all the more distant friends were invited, and everyone there had a +1. I was literally placed at a table as the one single person, and everyone else at the table was a couple. Some at the table were other members of the wedding party, but others were random distant acquaintances. People started asking me where my boyfriend was, and I said I was told he wasn't invited. They asked why, and I said I had no idea. This is when I started letting my surliness show and started acting rude and mean because I was humiliated. And then I was brought into conversation with the couple's male friend, Dean. I was previously told that Dean has a crush on me, and I made it clear I wouldn't be interested, even if I were single. Even after that, he kept trying to message me, and I ignored him. But now, the people who brought me into conversation with Dean were like standing around staring at us and giggling behind their backs, like they thought they were Cupid matchmakers. Dean was absolutely a participant in this. I was meaner to Dean than I've ever been to anyone in my entire life. I was as fully rude as I've ever wanted to be when being the target of someone's romantic interest unwantedly. It's true, I don't really know if I was being set up, but I was already furious before that happened. Everyone was silent and awkward. I went back and finished my meal, and as soon as I was done, picked up my purse and left, and went straight to my boyfriend's house, skipping most of the reception, cake cutting, speeches, and everything. I'm now being told by the couple that they're hurt and confused as to why I left so early. I haven't replied. Am I the jerk for not telling my family which of my kids is biologically mine? I have 2 kids, Clark and Kent. While they have the same father, only one of them is biologically my kid. They were born within 6 months of each other. The boys are currently 6, and for various reasons, I have full custody of both of them. I didn't speak to anyone in my family for several years, and we got back in touch in 2019. Due to the boys' ages, my family know I couldn't have carried both, unless I have the gestation period of a hamster or the longest labor ever. I've explained to them how this all came to be, but in my explanation, I neglected to tell them which was my biological kid. Due to my ex having a type, the other woman looked enough like me that the boys could pass for twins. Same dark hair, blue eyes, pale skin, and both cleft chins and dimples. My brother jokes that they look like tiny supermen. People who know them refer to them as twins because aside from a few minor differences, they're practically identical. Frankly, if they were closer in age and I'd had full custody of both from the time they were born, I suspect I would have mixed them up a lot as babies. Shortly before Clark's birthday last year, my mom asked if she could see Clark's birth certificate. I asked why, and she said she wanted to know the exact time he was born, so I told her. She asked if she could see the certificate anyway. I asked why. She said she just wanted to check. I said I'm his mother. I know when he was born. Then she asked the same thing about Kent, and we went through the same conversation all over again. Mom eventually admitted that she just wanted to see the birth mother's name on each certificate, which isn't even how that works, and I told her as much. This led to an argument where my stance was that I'm their mother. Biology is irrelevant. Mom says if biology is irrelevant, then it's not a big deal to tell her which of them is biologically mine. I said if she's so hung up on biology, then clearly it's a big deal to her, and I don't want it to be a big deal, especially as the boys themselves don't know. Mom feels this is incredibly selfish, narcissistic, and overall wrong. She feels that if biology isn't such a big issue, then I should have no problem telling her whether Clark or Kent is my biological son, and that accusing her of potential favoritism or something similar with her bio grandkid is an unfair judgment with no actual reasoning to it. My boyfriend agrees that I shouldn't tell anyone, at least until my sons have decided for themselves if they want to know and want other people to know. But my entire family agrees with Mom that I'm being unreasonably selfish and that my actions now are more likely to cause issues than Mom's potential actions later. Am I in the wrong? Well, what do you think? Should OP tell her mom or not? Please let us know. I think Grandma should mind her own business, to be honest. Am I the jerk for not reassuring my boyfriend I was fine after he didn't help me after my car broke down by his house? I was driving to the store and my car crapped out on me. Turns out the alternator failed and the engine stalled out. I pulled over to the side of a remote road. It was cold and I wasn't dressed for the weather without the car's heater. Dumb of me to not wear a warmer coat or think to put a blanket in my car for the winter just in case, but it was supposed to be a quick errand. I called my boyfriend who lived very close to where I was broken down and he didn't pick up. I texted him saying I was broken down and I needed a ride. Could he help? He said no, he had a friend visiting. I said it was freezing cold and I needed to get out of the cold fast because the car heater was broken too. He said, "Can't you ask a friend? This is a bad time." I called a friend who was 35 minutes away and he got on the road right away, and we made plans to have his brother, who works for a towing company, get it for cheap the next day as a favor. We hung out for a few hours and then I went to bed early. I accidentally left my phone in his car, so when he left, he took it along. The next morning, I couldn't find my phone and sent an email to my friend to ask if he had seen it. He replied and said he found it in his car and he could bring it back on the weekend. I thanked him and apologized for making him make the trip twice. Anyway, I worked through the day and only checked my social media after the workday. I saw some panicked messages from my boyfriend on my Facebook asking what had happened. I didn't answer his text for 24 hours after the last thing I sent was, "Can you please come pick me up? It's freezing cold and I need to get out of the cold fast. Car heater is broken." And I wasn't picking up my phone or answering texts or social media messages. Then he went out for a drive and found my car abandoned in the dirt off the side of the road. He was convinced I had been ignoring him to spite him for not leaving right away to get me. He hadn't realized how serious it was, and he had expected if I had had trouble getting a friend to help, I'd call him and tell him I didn't have another option. I said I wasn't being petty. I was just trying to deal with my own crap when my car crapped out on me, and I honestly wasn't thinking about him at all after he brushed me off for asking for help. He said that I was stupid for not thinking that he'd be worried to be ghosted for a day after saying I was in trouble. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I was okay after he didn't want to help me after my car crapped out? Edit. I broke things off. Seriously, thank you to everyone who commented and told me this crap wasn't normal or okay. I thought I'd feel bad about ending things because I really wanted things to work out, but honestly, I feel like that's a huge weight off my shoulders. Am I the jerk for kicking out my mother and sister? I'm 21, female. I own my own place. I've lived here for a while now, and I loved my own peace living by myself with no kids or a spouse. My mom, who's 41, wasn't the best when I was growing up. She would bring guys in and out of the home all the time. I'm glad nothing ever happened to me, but it gave me a bad view for her once I grew up, and not a good relationship along with it. I have a sister, 22, who's disabled physically and mentally. I grew up with her, but it was extremely hard to form a relationship with her. I had to take care of her a lot growing up, because my own mom wouldn't do any of it due to mom wilding around. My sister and I shared a room growing up, and I hated every second of it, if I'm going to be honest. My mom has been renting for a place to live, and since a few months ago, she can't live there anymore. My sister still lives with my mom, and my mom doesn't take care of her actively. She pays for a caregiver. My mom guilt-tripped me into letting her and my sister live with me temporarily for a month. I eventually said yes. It was fine for the first few days. My mom and sister have been living here now for 3 months. My mom said only 1 month. I have to work a lot, so I'm barely there anyways. But when I have a day off, I hate every second of it. I know my sister cannot help it, that she makes noises, a lot of noises, loud noises. It's like I can hear it everywhere. The caregiver still cares for her, but it's like having a complete stranger in my home. Long story short, on my day off, after hearing everything and the noises and tantrums, I went insane and snapped. I told my mom she has to leave. She refused to leave at first, but eventually she did. The last thing she told me was, "You're supposed to be grateful that I gave you a home to live in, and you can't give that back? You're a jerk and always have been." I eventually told her to just leave, and my mom got my sister and they both left. I feel like I'm the complete jerk because of the fact that I told her to leave just because I was tired of my sister, even though she cannot help it at all. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you all for taking the time to comment. I have no new news about my mom or sister. I haven't spoken to her since she left. I haven't been able to reply to comments because I've been insanely busy today, but I just now read most of the comments. I appreciate it, and I started crying at some comments because they hit a soft spot for me. I appreciate the comments you guys left. Thank you. Edit. To those asking how I have my own house at 21, I was given a lawsuit settlement for undisclosed reasons. That's a whole different story unrelated to this. When I was 19, and I knew a particular person who was selling a house for cheap, so I snagged it. I would say it was an unlucky, lucky situation. Edit 3. I will be speaking to someone soon on my sister's behalf. I haven't ignored this whatsoever or forgot. I'm going to try to get my sister the proper care that she needs from someone or a place who does know how to do that. I do not want to take care of her anymore. Nearly half my life, I was doing just that. Just for a final edit, she does not need to stay with our mom. Entitled Mom and Service Dog Fiasco, complete with fake fainting. Hi, I'm Crack Elf, and I have a service dog for my seizures. Before I recount the tale of this humanoid embodiment of a wet fart, I need to say a handful of things about service dogs. In the US, there is no legit or legal certification or registration for service dogs. There is no paperwork or certificate. There's no set harness or vest that makes a service dog real, and service dogs aren't even required to wear anything identifying them. For a dog to be a service dog, you must be disabled. The dog must be trained to do work to help with the disability. Snuggling or "he makes me feel better by being around" do not count. And the dog must not have any kind of bite record. The dog also has to be trained to handle being in public. I went to the redacted mall with my service dog and ended up going into a home decor shop. She was wearing a Harry Potter themed vest, Slytherin pattern fabric, but was marked clearly as a service dog. She was sitting in a close heel. I suddenly hear loud, angry, excitable barking, and it sounded like it was coming from a big dog. My service dog has been attacked before, so I was kind of freaked out already. I was looking to see if there was a second exit to the shop when I saw the older woman, entitled Mom, with her severely obese, hyperactive Labrador and wildly overstimulated kid in tow. The lab was pulling at the end of his flexi lead, barking his head off, and it looked like his tiny vest was either going to snap or cut through his fat rolls. She had the flexi lead attached to his vest, and he wasn't wearing a collar. We're in a sort of weird standoff where I look like I'm one minor inconvenience away from a heart attack, and she's smirking, letting her dog bark, pull, and fling saliva everywhere. The thing was acting like Cujo, Bird Dog Edition. Entitled Mom gets her son's attention by snapping a few times and then pointing at my dog and says, as loudly as she possibly can, "See? That's a fake support dog. The real ones are always retrievers." I wasn't really sure what to say to that, because she's wrong, and her service dog is currently running in place at the end of its lead because it can't get any traction on the floor. I couldn't get past her because the little corridor to the exit was narrow enough for Cujo 2.0 to get a hold of my service dog. I settled on, "Move, I can't get past your dog." She immediately starts getting upset and claiming that my wolf hybrid, husky but okay, is actually vicious and her dog only wants to play. I just sort of told her to move again. She started yelling for an employee, claiming she felt she was in danger and they needed to kick me out with my fake service dog because said dog, who was standing directly beside me, completely silent, was a direct threat to her psychotic lab. An employee who looks as if he gave up his happiness at the ripe old age of 15, "God, dude, I'm sorry you have to deal with this kind of person regularly," comes over and glances at me, then turns his attention to entitled Mom. The conversation followed. Employee: "Your dog is barking and not under control. Please leave. You can come back without him." Legal to request and enforce if the dog is acting like that. Entitled Mom: "Excuse me? Are you trying to deny me service because my son has a support dog?" Said over the dog barking itself hoarse. Employee: "According to the Americans with Disabilities Act, employees can ask people with disruptive or aggressive dogs to leave. You can still return without him." "My son needs this dog. He can't leave the house without this dog." Whips out her phone, starts to dial 911. Me, still just looking for a way to get out of this store. Entitled Mom on the phone with a 911 dispatcher, crying and screaming about how her son is being discriminated against because he has a service dog, getting more and more frustrated because the dispatcher is taking maybe a second too long. She demands that the dispatcher send EMS and the police. Son starting to cry because loud, angry mom is probably terrifying him. There's a short lull where her dog suddenly stops barking, sniffs the ground, and starts circling. He then pops a squat right in the Pottery Barn entryway, drops an almost liquid log so foul that it could curl a lumberjack's eyelashes. The employee sighs and tells her again to just leave, but not to come back. She resumes screaming. I zone out of reality and into the Wii Sports theme because I'm trapped in the store, not only by a possibly aggressive dog, but also by the river of molten doggy dew spread out in the entryway. Police and EMS arrive. They start asking three of us some questions. Employee and I are understandably losing the will to live, and entitled mom is screaming and gesturing wildly, yanking our crying kid around in the process. The cop turns to the employee and says, "Which dog made that mess?" Employee tells him the truth. It was entitled mom's dog. Entitled mom starts screaming about how this is discrimination against her son. The cop asks what task the dog performs, legal, and she says emotional support. The cop, of course, tells her to leave because ESAs don't have public access rights. Entitled mom suddenly interrupts the cop and says that the dog is actually for her fainting episodes, and he barks when she is going to faint. Dog resumes barking and she dramatically faints. She said, "I'm fainting," and lowered herself to the ground, guarding her face, and then goes limp once she's on the floor. Everything is quiet for a moment until the cop says, "Ma'am," and she yells, "Get the EMTs. I fainted. I am injured." I have fully left this plane of existence and I'm now watching in third person. EMS trundle over with a stretcher, which she limply rolls onto, making those weird fatigued Southern Belle noises. Dog resumes barking. Son resumes crying. The EMTs ask who's going to take the dog because they are refusing to transport a possibly aggressive animal. Entitled Mom resumes screaming about her discrimination. Entitled Mom caves after they tell her she will not be going to the hospital until someone else has the dog. Entitled Mom yells for her husband for 2 minutes straight until he comes up, takes the barking dog, takes the kid, and leaves. Entitled Mom is shipped to the hospital and hopefully the psych ward. A janitor comes to clean up the river of liquid doggy doo in the entryway. Employee goes back to the usual drudgery of working at Pottery Barn, and I go home because my batteries are empty. Edit. If I see another well-intentioned but misinformed person rooting for mandatory documentation/certification for service dogs, I'm going to leave this plane of reality and take every dog, puppy, wolf, coyote, and dingo with me so no one can enjoy them anymore. Chipotle. Once you get hired, you can never leave. My wife has been mistaken for a Chipotle employee 2 times, with somewhat hilarious results, resulting in an argument with a manager who thought she was a sloppily dressed new hire and a woman who could only yell. So a bit of background. 7 years ago, in college, me and her used to work for Chipotle. In fact, it was where we met. As we worked there, we amassed quite the selection of Chipotle t-shirts, and for those of you who don't know, the design is a small Chipotle logo on the front and a large design on the back. Back in the early 2010s, the designs were quite imaginative and had some pretty cool art on the back, which actually might be something you might want to be seen wearing. My wife's friend, a woman who through remarkable patience and tenacity actually became successful in the company, who still works there, hooks her up with the newer shirts. And yeah, they're not as good as before, with boring designs talking about special offers and real ingredients. Eventually, working there became too much for me, and I fell out with the management and quit. I was so mad at them, I was going to burn my shirts as an act of catharsis, but my wife persuaded me to let her have them for work, even though they were way too big for her, and so she amassed quite the collection. I'd estimate it to be about 20. She persevered for a while after I left, getting promoted to a kitchen manager, and then after we left, the huge collection of work shirts became her loungewear and pajamas. It's like when I got hired, I could never really leave because half the time I see a Chipotle girl wandering around the house. Harmless enough, but once or twice she's actually gone into a Chipotle wearing one of these shirts, and occasionally weird stuff happens. So the first one was about 2 or 3 years ago. We had been out the previous night, it was a Saturday, and we'd both gotten pretty drunk. When we'd gotten home, I helped her into bed and she'd just thrown on a t-shirt and fallen asleep, and then me not long after. I woke up the next morning feeling a lot better, had breakfast, but she was still pretty hungover from the previous night, so I just sat and played games for a few hours until about noon. I went in and asked her if she wanted food, and she did, but she wanted to go to Chipotle, as she felt burgers would be gross in her hungover state. She'd been sleeping on her back, however, so I hadn't noticed that she was wearing one of her favorite shirts, a huge, oversized, for her, one that she had gotten from me that featured a lettuce shouting lechuga on the back, and an avocado, which replies Gesundheit. As I said, the old designs were actually quite cool and weird. She slipped on an old pair of Lakers basketball shorts, a hoodie which covered up her t-shirt, hence me not seeing it, and some sunglasses to hide her hangover, and then we left for Chipotle. She brightened up on the way considerably as well, so everything seemed fine. We got our food and started eating, and then, as it was hot, she took off her hoodie and then said she'd be off to the restroom. I didn't think much of this, and again, I didn't notice the back of her shirt. So for a while, I carried on eating and finished, and then I'd noticed my girlfriend hadn't come back from the restroom. So I sent her a text asking if she was all right. She sent one back saying, "Long story," and then a few minutes later came back laughing. What had happened is she had gone to the restroom, and when she came out, ran into a woman who had asked her, "What do you think you're doing, coming in dressed like this?" It turned out this was the store manager. She thought my girlfriend was a new hire, and she proceeded to tell her off for coming in dressed in such a sloppy manner. An oversized uniform shirt and baggy basketball shorts give a poor impression of the company, and that she'd have to go back home and change, and that she was going to be written up. My girlfriend started to get angry in response. Then she looked down, and then at the reflection of the back of her shirt in the glass behind her, and realized the t-shirt she had thrown on last night was in fact, yes, a Chipotle uniform, so an easy mistake to make. She explained she was actually a customer and this was her boyfriend's old work shirt, and started to apologize for coming in dressed this way and confusing the manager, at which point the manager apologized for telling my girlfriend off and they spent about a minute in a loop of apologizing to each other. Finally, the manager offered my girlfriend a buy one get one free card for the mistake, and so in the end there were no hard feelings. So we got some free food from this one, and it was hilarious as well. That was one of our experiences. The other was actually a few weeks ago, and since the last time, we got married, so she's now my wife. Now that lockdown is lifting and we can go out a little, a while ago we went to Chipotle on a Sunday evening, and yeah, my wife was rocking a Chipotle shirt again. We figured that as it was quite late in the evening, there wouldn't be many people there. It would be pretty chill, and we couldn't be bothered smartening up, so we just went as we were. Also, the store we frequent seems to always hire super nice staff as well, so it's always been good. We go in, and yeah, there's only 1 or 2 people there, so it should be fine, right? We order, and the guy who made our food for us gave her a double take, but didn't really say anything. The girl on cashier, however, smiles and says, "I like your shirt." And my wife says, "Oh, I don't work here." There is life after Chipotle, and they have a nice conversation about college and how things are nowadays and lockdown, etc. I think she was about 17, and she enjoyed the conversation so much that she gave us our meal for free. I leave a nice tip for the cashier and the other staff as well, because I remember how good that felt at the end of the shift. And so we're heading towards our seat, and the evening has a generally good vibe to it so far. However, then we hear, "No, you're doing my bowl wrong. I want this salad." Jab, jab, greasy fingerprints on sneeze guard. "You're still doing it wrong. My God, how stupid can you be?" And so on. And looking over my shoulder, I saw a woman who was one of these customers who is the nightmare of all Chipotle workers. The self-entitled customer who believes that by yelling and creating a scene, they can get whatever they want. If you're wondering why everything she said is in all caps, it's because she never lowered her voice and stopped yelling while she was in the store. It's the only way I can get across how obnoxious it was to be around her. We sit down, and then she finally gets her bowl made, exactly how she wanted it. But it wasn't good enough, and when she gets to our previously happy cashier, she proceeds to chew her out for being super slow and overpriced. "My God, this place is a disgrace," and is just making her life a misery. The cashier is trying to placate her as best as she can, and an equally stressed manager, I don't think much older, appears and tries to calm down her Karen-ness, but the woman just won't stop. I just shook my head and started eating, but the manager must have done something to get her to leave them alone, because the Karen went and sat by the door after making a scene of snatching up her food and storming to a table. Karen clearly made quite an impact on the cashier as she ran off to the back to cry, leaving her equally miserable-looking manager in her place, and generally everything just feels bad now. We just finished our food and walked out, but as we go past the Karen on the way to the door, we hear, "Hey, you. Yeah, you, girl." And we stop. My wife turns around and says, "Excuse me, ma'am?" And Karen goes, "Yeah, I know you're leaving work with your boyfriend, but as your manager, I want to make a formal complaint." My wife turns back to me, grins, and mouths, "What the heck?" Because although she is wearing a Chipotle shirt, she's also wearing neon green running shorts, flip-flops, and a backwards green and yellow baseball cap, none of which are part of the approved uniform. This isn't how Chipotle managers dress, although I guess Karen figured she was slightly older than the rest of them. She's 28, and thus was a senior manager. My wife finished her time at Chipotle as a kitchen manager, and I guess the fact this customer made our new favorite cashier cry meant that she wanted a little payback for all of the times she'd been in the same situation. She does a very, very good customer service persona, all bubbly and sweet, and she slipped right back into it and then walked over to her and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. How can I help you?" Karen then goes off into a rant about how the store is badly run. She was kept waiting when clearly trying to mess around and go on a little power trip, and how the employees are all stupid, and no wonder they were all minimum wage and blah blah, generally being a jerk. My wife just listens intently and says with a smile, "Well, ma'am, those are some interesting observations, but I think you can just go forget yourself." Karen is stunned for a second, as well as the staff behind the counter, who seem to be enjoying watching someone stand up to Karen, and then says, "I'm writing to head office, and you're out of a job, missy. Give me your name." At which point my wife says, "I'm first name." Karen writes down her name and then says, "You'll be hearing from head office after they hear from me." At which point my wife says, "And I haven't been a manager at Chipotle for quite a long time, so I can pretty much say whatever I want to you. Karen just stares at her and says, "But you're wearing their shirt." To which she responds, "Yeah, I'm wearing it because it's a cool shirt and I used to work here. It doesn't mean I work here now, so I can tell you that you're being a massive jerk who likes taking her anger out on people much younger than her, and that I think everybody would prefer it if you just buzz off and stop throwing your weight around because Chipotle can't fire me." Karen is stunned, processing a girl in a Chipotle shirt telling her off instead of placating her, and then she pushes past us and says, "This is a disgrace, never coming here again," and slams the door behind her, and then drives off quickly. I'm just processing what happened as it was weird, and my wife goes back over to the two girls behind the counter to apologizing for saying that to a customer. I guess, as in Karen's eyes, she was a representative of the company, but the girls were cool with it and quite happy that she did stand up to the Karen. And also, it was just a customer versus customer interaction, despite appearances. So moral of the story, if you ever work a fast food job and want to go back there, check you're not wearing the old uniform before you go in. Edit. Apparently, it's not an egg saying Gesundheit, but an avocado, as it was just pointed out to me. Speaking of Chipotle, what's your favorite place to go eat? Please let us know. Nothing tops McDonald's. Entitled dad tries to cut in line because his son needs his meds. Incident turns physical. To add some context before the whole story goes down, I recently suffered an injury at my work. I was granted time off to recover psychologically and physically. I've lost an unhealthy amount of weight, and I'm quite tall, so I look kind of odd. Now on to the story. So I'm waiting at the counter at my local pharmacy. I'm waiting for a pretty big pickup of medications. I'm pretty stressed because it's quite busy in the pharmacy. I couldn't really figure out why, but I think it had to do with giving out some sort of shots. While I'm waiting, a man with a Blue Jays ball cap, entitled Dad, and his kid line up behind me. At this point, it's taking longer than I anticipated for my meds to come in, and I can tell the man behind me is getting quite impatient. Entitled Dad says, "Hey, excuse me, can we go up?" I respond, I think they're almost done." A few more minutes pass, and the meds haven't come in. Ball cap guy, entitled Dad, is getting increasingly impatient, and my social anxiety is clawing at the back of my head. Entitled Dad says, "I'm going in front of you, buddy." I say, "Can you wait a bit longer? I really need..." Entitled Dad responds, "Yeah, right, buddy," and pushes past me to the pharmacist counter. Entitled Dad yells, "Excuse me, can I get my kid's medicine?" The nice pharmacist lady, who happens to be my girlfriend's older sister, comes to the counter. We're very familiar with each other, and she's always been super nice and helpful. She looks a bit flustered and irritated. Girlfriend's sister goes, "We're just sorting out someone else's medications at the moment. Can you wait a bit longer?" I'm the only other person at the counter, so it's apparent who's causing the wait. Entitled Dad, "So you'll give this fiend his medications, but not my kid?" At this point, my social anxiety kicks in full drive, and my fight or flight instincts are raging. I'm using every fiber of my being to hold back tears. Girlfriend's sister glares at Entitled Dad and says, "Sir, you are going to wait your turn. No discussion. We're almost done." Entitled Dad gets angry. "My kid needs his pills." I look at the kid, and he's dead silent. He looks like he wants to run away as badly as I do. Girlfriend's sister, "Sir, if you don't calm down, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." At this point, everyone in the pharmacy is staring at the commotion, and I start crying uncontrollably, and I try to say, "He can just go ahead," to diffuse everything, but I'm pretty sure it came out as gobbledygook. Entitled Dad looks at me and screams, "What the heck are you crying about?" and starts approaching me. I'm all too familiar with confrontation in my work, and I start freaking out. I turn to run away, but I feel something shove me, and I fall onto the floor. It didn't hurt. My fear just overwhelmed me, and I curled up into a ball on the floor and cried. I hear a lot of screaming and yelling between the pharmacy employees and the man. After what eventually felt like forever, some policemen arrive. Policewoman tries to ask me if I'm all right before questioning me. My girlfriend's sister was infuriated that they were questioning me, and she answered everything for me. The policeman took Entitled Dad outside, and my girlfriend's sister took me out back and drove me crying to my girlfriend's apartment. Edit. I want to thank everyone so much for the kind words and support. Life is hard right now, but it's always reassuring kind folks like you exist. 6 feet out or 6 feet up. I was reminiscing with my family about my late grandfather and some of the tomfoolery he got up to. I thought this story made a perfect post for this sub. Backstory. Decades ago, my grandparents purchased a large plot of land out in the middle of nowhere with the idea to build themselves a home and retire on that plot. They were both from the rural Midwest, so they originally wanted to keep the horses, chickens, and maybe a few other small farm animals on this land, hence the size. As the years went by and they started actually making plans, they realized that horses weren't really feasible for a variety of reasons. By that time, the area around their plot of land had been significantly more developed, so they instead split the plot into 8 pieces and sold the other 7, essentially financing their original purchase and the construction of the house, leaving their retirement and pension untouched. Because of their incredibly advantageous position, they made a point to only sell to like-minded buyers, friendly retirees who were looking for their last home and wanted a bit of the same rural isolation that my grandparents wanted. The result is that my grandparents ended up with their dream bungalow on a spacious lot surrounded by friendly neighbors and without any major time or money obligations. They ended up spending a lot of time volunteering and generally making friends with the community that was growing around them. The event. The area ended up becoming incorporated, and the town they were now living in eventually decided that the 2-lane blacktop road needed to be repaved and upgraded with sidewalks, gutters, and all the other amenities townspeople expect. Now, the county that the town was incorporated from had planned ahead, and there was plenty of room set aside for exactly this type of project, so none of the residents needed to move their fences or give up property to the state. However, most of them had placed their mailboxes on a post about a half dozen feet from their property line, nearer to the road so that the postman had easy access. When the construction started, a city representative visited each property on this street and gave them a heads up on what to expect, and also asked that the residents move their mailboxes to make room for construction. My grandfather, being of light schedule and helpful demeanor, offered to help his neighbors temporarily relocate their mailbox and post. He had retired from a career as a handyman, and several of his kids owned landscaping or similar businesses. So he and my uncle spent a few hours with a mini backhoe and unearthed all 8 of his neighbors' mailbox posts, cement and all. He saved the posts to reinstall when the road was complete and mounted the mailbox proper on each property's fence. The issue. Lo and behold, on Monday they had no mail service. After a bit of investigation, they realized none of their neighbors did either. So the next morning, my grandfather waited outside to see what the problem was. Right on time, the mailman drove down their side of the street, completely ignoring all 8 properties. Redoubling his efforts, the next morning my grandfather was able to flag the mailman down and ask what the problem was. According to my grandfather, the very curt response was, "I'm not required to deliver to any mailbox more than 36 inches from the edge of the road." A call to the Postal Service confirmed this rule. The mailman may deliver outside that limit if they want, but they are not required to. The compliance. Now, it's pretty amazing what you can get done with 8 business hours of free time. The problem was that 36 inches from the current edge of the road is in the way of construction. My grandfather spoke to the construction supervisor, who was sympathetic, but just as stuck as my grandfather was. My grandfather then visited the postal office and returned with a current copy of the regulations about mailbox locations. After a few hours of study and another visit to the construction supervisor's office with a half dozen donuts and some coffee, he had formulated a plan. Remember his sons who ran a landscaping business? My grandfather got in his truck and visited both businesses. He returned home with 8 20-gallon plant pots. These things are huge, 30 inches tall, and just about as large around. You see, while the construction guys couldn't mess with a federally protected, fixed mailbox, they were happy to move a pot out of their way in the morning and back when the job was finished for the day. My grandma makes some pretty darn good donuts, which is a pretty easy task when you have earth-moving equipment nearby. So each post was replanted in a 20-gallon pot, and each mailbox was remounted on a post, and each pot was placed conservatively within 36 inches of the current road's edge. The kicker was that a mailbox post that is meant to stick 4 feet out of the ground has at least 2 feet buried in the ground. In other words, it's a 6-foot post. When you post that inside a pot with a few inches of soil underneath and that pot on the surface of the ground, a mailbox on top is easily more than 6 feet in the air. You see, the mailbox codes clearly specify how far horizontally a mailbox needs to be from the road, but says nothing about how high that mailbox needs to be. It took a few more conversations with a postman and a visit from the local inspector, but the mailman spent the better part of 6 months delivering to 8 mailboxes 6 feet in the air rather than walk the extra 6 feet to the fence. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend I can't afford to feed his kids right now? Hi Reddit. I really need the unbiased opinion of internet strangers and accept any and all judgment. For context, my boyfriend, 36 male, and my son and I, 36 female, live together, and for the moment I am the main breadwinner. Boyfriend pays his portion of the rent and I then pay for everything else. Food, utilities, my portion of the rent, fuel, basically everything else. And I have to budget like crazy to cover everything. I don't have a great salary either, but better than his. He's working on bettering his situation, and I support us with an open heart. No resentment and no expectations on repayment. He has 2 kids from a previous relationship that visit us semi-regularly when he's off work. So on to the issue. Last week, he kind of sprung it on me that his kids were coming to stay the night. I asked him nicely to let me know a bit sooner next time so that I could work my money situation. I reworked some things to feed all of us, and everything is good. I made a bunch of pancakes. Yesterday, he tells me that they're coming again. I think the ex is asking, and I ask if it's after I get paid. He says no, it's not. I say as gently as I can that it's the end of the month and I can't really afford 2 extra mouths right now. I'm having to borrow to make ends meet for the week as it is. He blows up, says he doesn't see his kids and it's not my responsibility, and he'll sell his car for money if he has to. I love him and I love his kids, but the reality of the situation is that I can literally not feed them 2 right now. I know it's just 2 kids and a few extra meals, but it's the reality of our situation. And one of the kids is a preteen that eats a lot more than I do some days, and that's okay. Please bear in mind that boyfriend has no money at all for extra anything. Am I the jerk for saying I'm not able to accommodate his kids right now? Karen didn't show up for work, so I fired her. I own a vape shop. We're a small business, only 12 employees. One of my employees, Peggy, was supposed to open yesterday. Peggy has recently been promoted to manager after 2 solid years of good work as a cashier. I really thought she could handle the responsibility. So I wake up 3 hours after the place should be open, and I have 22 notifications on the store Facebook page. Customers have been trying to come shop, but the store is closed. Employees are showing up to work, but they're locked out. I call Peggy and get no response. I text her, same thing. So I go in and open the store. An hour before her shift was supposed to be over, she calls me back. I ask her if she's okay, and she says she needed to take a mental health day and do some self-care. I'm still pretty upset at this point, but I'm trying to be understanding as I know how important mental health can be. So I ask her why she didn't call me as soon as she knew that she needed the day off. Her response, I didn't have enough spoons in my drawer for that. Frankly, I don't know what that means. But it seems to me like she's saying she cannot be trusted to handle the responsibility of opening the store in the AM. So I told her she had 2 choices. 1, go back to her old position with her old pay. 2, I fire her completely. She's calling me all sorts of names now and says that I'm discriminating against her. None of this would have been a problem if she simply took 2 minutes to call out. I would have got up and opened the store on time. But this no-call, no-show crap is not the way to run a successful business. I think I might be the jerk here because I'm taking away her promotion over something she really had no control over. But at the same time, she really could have called me. So Reddit, I leave it to you. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is Peggy? Please let us know. After sitting here listening to Reddit Boy every day for the past 3 years, I think I could use a day off myself. Cheat on your wife? I'll ruin your life. This happened about 4 years ago, but I recently found out how part of my revenge plan panned out, which is what prompted me to post this. I have never shared this with anyone before. Background. My mom has been best friends with Eileen, not her real name, since they were both kids, and Eileen has kind of been like an aunt to me. About 5 years ago, Eileen's husband of more than 25 years surprised her by asking for a divorce. Eileen lived about 6 hours away from her mom at the time, and I lived out of state, so I didn't find out how everything went down until a few months after their divorce was finalized. Unfortunately, Eileen's life kind of spiraled out of control after the separation and divorce. She developed depression and a drinking problem. But my mom and some other childhood friends were able to convince her to move back to her hometown, and then they convinced her to go to rehab. I moved back home shortly before Eileen went to rehab, and because my school/work schedule was pretty flexible, I was able to house sit and take care of some stuff while she was in rehab. The first time I visited her in rehab, I got the whole divorce story, and it was bad. Eileen's ex, Jeff, also not his real name, hadn't talked to Eileen about any problems prior to asking for a divorce, so she just assumed he fell out of love with her. But I was immediately skeptical about the things Eileen told me. First, Jeff, who was an executive at a pharmaceutical company earning mid-six figures, was fired from his job a year before they split up and decided to take a break before looking for another job. It was weird to me that Jeff decided to take a break from work because he had always been such a workaholic. Eileen hasn't worked in years because of a disability, but she has some property and a trust her parents left her that lets her live a comfortable life without working. Jeff and Eileen lived off money from the trust while he was unemployed. Then, after Jeff said he wanted a divorce, he refused to go to couples therapy or talk about why he wanted a divorce. The only thing he would say was that they had grown apart and that he was sick of being with someone like Eileen. He said Eileen's mother was right about her. Eileen's mother was a classic narcissist and had bullied her for her whole life, which caused a lot of problems that Jeff knew about. Finally, right after the divorce was finalized, Jeff moved out of state, but to a state he didn't have any family or connections in. Jeff's parents are still alive and in their 80s and 90s, and Jeff is pretty close to them, so it didn't make any sense to me why Jeff wouldn't move to be closer to them if he wanted to move after the divorce. I didn't say anything to Eileen because I didn't want to upset her, but I thought Jeff might have been having an affair, had orchestrated his unemployment to avoid paying alimony, and then moved out of state to be with his mistress. I just didn't have a way to confirm it at the time. The investigation. Then Eileen asked me to look for a box of Jeff's stuff he had asked her to hold for him until he moved into his new apartment. She told me all the info on the box, contents, and his new address was in an email he sent her, and she gave me the password to her computer so I could access the email. This is where I lucked out. It turns out Jeff had used her computer and set up his email on the computer. I accidentally clicked on the app for his email when I was searching for Eileen's email. I decided to take a peek at his email. The first thing I noticed was that he had mostly stopped using that email address 3 years before, which was about 1 year before he was fired. In a folder for digital receipts, I found a confirmation email for a dating site, which I think he saved there accidentally. I also found a verification email for a new email address. I started to put together a speculative timeline of what happened. I guessed that about 3 years before, Jeff started an affair, and shortly after, he decided to get a new email address to help keep the affair secret. I wanted to access his dating profile to get more information, so I tried to use the forgot password feature to see if I could generate an email that would allow me to reset the password and log in that way. Unfortunately, the dating site didn't recognize Jeff's old email address. I thought I might be able to get into Jeff's new email using his old email to reset the password, and then maybe I could use the new email to get into the dating website. But I didn't want to risk locking Jeff out of his new email and alerting him until I knew more about what he had done. And here's where I totally lucked out. The email app Jeff downloaded to Eileen's MacBook had a note feature, and super genius Jeff saved some passwords on notes. Most of the passwords weren't helpful, but I did get the password to the dating site and his Twitter and Netflix accounts. I logged into the dating site using his new email address and the password. I was able to read messages Jeff sent to another woman before he broke up with Eileen. The new mistress sent Jeff her email address and one of the messages. I searched Facebook for the mistress's email address and found her profile. I couldn't read her posts, but she left her photos public. She had recent photos of her and Jeff, so I knew they were still together. She also posted a photo of a construction crew breaking ground on a new home for her and Jeff, which was interesting because I got the impression from Eileen that Jeff didn't have a lot of money after the divorce. Here's where my background is important. At the time I was attending law school, I moved back to my hometown for 1 semester for a legal residency, and I had access to Lexis database, specifically their public records database. I had spent a good portion of one of my summer internships tracking down property records and other assets to help recover judgments for clients, so I knew how to search for public records. The mistress had purchased several acres in a wealthy suburb several months before Jeff filed for divorce, and there was no mortgage listed on the record. I had already found her LinkedIn page, so I knew that she worked as an executive assistant before she moved out of state with Jeff. She didn't advertise her salary, but I doubted she could have afforded the property with her salary alone. It's possible she had money outside her salary, but I suspected Jeff gave her money to purchase the land before he filed for divorce. I also found an updated record in Lexis showing Jeff and the mistress as joint owners of the property. I called the county records office to confirm ownership of the property, dates, etc. The mistress had filed a quitclaim just 5 weeks after Jeff's divorce was finalized. I was still hesitant to try to log into Jeff's new email, so I decided to check his old email again to see if there was anything else I should investigate before moving to the new email. I didn't find anything, but I noticed that several passwords in his notes were the same. I decided to try to log into his new email using the same password he used for the dating site. I figured the two accounts were created around the same time, so if he had recycled a password, that was the most likely candidate. It worked. His new email was a goldmine. Because this story is already getting ridiculously long, I'll list some of the relevant stuff I found. Jeff hadn't been fired from his old job. He quit and lied to Eileen. I found an email from his admin asking where to have payroll send his last check and details about a goodbye party for him. Some emails between Jeff and a boat repair person mentioning a leak somewhere on one side of the sailboat near the engine compartment. The repair guy couldn't find the source of the leak, but he talked about the current and future problems with mold and the engine on that side. Emails between Jeff and a boat broker, which included the email address of buyers further down in the string. An emailed report from the boat inspector, which didn't include the leak or any mold damage or potential damage to the engine. Emails between Jeff and his contractor about changes made to the new house's sunroom, something about a 3-season sunroom versus a 4-season sunroom, and the construction needing to be modified to deal with the weight of snow. Emails between Jeff and the mistress. They had married. The mistress and Jeff shared a calendar. Some flirty emails between Jeff and another woman. Emails with info on Jeff's new employer. I downloaded all of the important emails and their attachments and started thinking about a revenge plan. Revenge. To my mind, everything was fair game. He lied about being fired, so I wanted him fired from his new job. I suspected he hid his money before his separation from Eileen to help pay for his new house, so I wanted him to lose his house. He cheated, so I wanted to destroy his new relationship. Anything I could do about the boat was a bonus. The easiest place to start was the boat. I had no idea if the source of the leak was found and repaired, or if the leak was verbally disclosed to the buyer. But I figured Jeff was a lying jerk, so odds were fair he hid the info from the new buyer. I sent the emails between Jeff and the repairman and another copy of the inspection to the buyer. I searched Jeff's county court website 5 to 6 months later and found out the buyers had filed a lawsuit against Jeff and the broker and inspector. I couldn't figure out how to take or destroy Jeff's house, so I settled for contacting the county inspector's office to complain about the sunroom not being up to code. This is actually what prompted me to write this post, because I just found out some details about what happened with the county inspectors. Keep in mind, I heard about this from a third party years after the fact, so I don't know all the details. It turns out the sunroom was code compliant, but the inspector did find a workshop/workroom attached to the detached garage that wasn't on the original permit or plans. The workshop had a bathroom that the contractor attached to the property's septic system after the initial inspection. A mutual friend of Eileen and Jeff told Eileen and me, and he guessed this was a big deal because the size of the septic system they installed wasn't sized to handle the additional input, but I don't know for sure. Jeff had to pay a fine and the workshop had to be removed. This ended up causing construction delays, which will become relevant below. As for destroying Jeff's marriage, my first impulse was to send the new wife the flirty emails between Jeff and the other woman. But when I searched for that woman on social media, I couldn't find anything. I had no way of knowing if the new wife knew of the other woman and would think that the emails weren't important or evidence of an affair. Then I played around with the idea of updating Jeff's dating profile and sending stuff to his wife. But it would take too long to manufacture a fake relationship with real dates and times, and I was worried that Jeff might get an email alert from the dating site that would clue him in. I ended up just risking that the new wife wouldn't know the other woman. I pretended to be someone concerned about an affair between Jeff and the new woman. Overall, I kept accusation vague, but I did say Jeff and the new girl went out to eat and to the movies on a few dates. Jeff's shared calendar said the new wife was out of town. I couldn't come up with a way to get Jeff fired. I rechecked his email and calendar over several weeks looking for something I could use to get him fired. Eventually, my legal residency got too busy to devote much time to revenge, so I decided to just let it go. Eileen recently reconnected with a friend she shared with Jeff, and that friend gave Eileen an update on Jeff. Eileen shared the details with me, and that's what reminded me of what I did and prompted this story. It turned out that I didn't need to worry about sabotaging Jeff's career. By luck, the woman Jeff had been emailing was actually his assistant at his new job, and Jeff's new boss was his brother-in-law. Jeff and his new wife actually moved to her hometown so she could be closer to her family, and so Jeff could go to work for his new brother-in-law. I have no idea if Jeff actually was cheating. He told a mutual friend that passed this story on to Eileen that they hadn't been having an affair. It didn't matter to new wife though, because she and Jeff got together when Jeff was already married. She didn't have a lot of trust for Jeff. She didn't believe Jeff's denials when I sent the email about him having the affair. She filed for divorce, and Jeff's brother-in-law boss fired him. And since the construction was delayed, the new house wasn't finished when Jeff and his new wife divorced. They had to sell an unfinished home, and Jeff took a big financial hit. Finally, these weren't part of my larger revenge plan, but I am pretty petty, so I took the box of Jeff's stuff, mostly photographs, and threw them away. I told Eileen they must have been lost in the move. Signed both of Jeff's email addresses for a bunch of spam, mailing lists, etc. Deleted his Netflix watch list. Posted, retweeted, and liked a bunch of nasty stuff on his Twitter account and deleted all of the accounts he was following. The ending. I never told Eileen what I did because I wanted her to have a plausible deniability and I didn't want to interfere with her recovery. She doesn't know about the boat lawsuit or the Netflix and Twitter stuff, but she did take satisfaction from his divorce and job loss. I probably would have let it all go if Jeff hadn't had cheated, because I had always really liked Jeff. I always thought he was nice, but I was obviously wrong about him. Nice people don't do the things Jeff did. As far as I'm concerned, Jeff deserved everything I did to him. Do you think OP went too far with his revenge, or did Jeff deserve exactly what he got? Please let us know. Always use two-factor authentication, especially if you're planning on cheating. A customer wants to sue me for stealing his phone. A few years ago, I worked a couple of seasons as receptionist/everything that was needed at an inn in one of those really popular Costa Brava tourist cities. Due to the location, next to the main road that crossed the city, our restaurant was open to everyone, not only the guests. The restaurant had some outdoor tables next to the parking, accessible to everyone. Not only for the customers, this is important. A lot of locals used our terrace and parking as a shortcut from the main road to the school that was on the other side. We also were the first restaurant that people that were going to the regional hospital would find. Due to that, every morning we had the ambulances crews eating breakfast. We liked them, they all knew us. My manager very often would make them some discounts. They didn't want us to give them free things. Several times, we had them leaving in a rush before they got a call. They would eventually come back later to pay for everything and apologize that they left without paying. We always told them not to worry about that. Our relationship with most of them was great, mostly because of one man, CG from now on. One day, CG and his colleagues came to eat lunch after work. It happened to also be one of the busiest days in the restaurant and the inn, so our attention was split between attending to the customers at the tables, at the bar, serving food, clearing tables, and accepting customers to the rooms. Usually, we try to clean the tables shortly after the customer leaves, but that day was chaotic. We were understaffed and starting to become overwhelmed. Even the kitchen staff had to go out sometimes to help clean the tables. So with all that is going on, we didn't even notice when the guy paid and left with his friends. Now to the main event. Apparently, he forgot his phone on the table outside, the closest table to the open sidewalk. We had signs stating that we were not responsible for lost items. He came the next day in his paramedic uniform asking if we had found his phone. I calmly told him that I personally have not, but will ask my colleagues if they did. I checked the lost items box, but nothing was there, nor have any of my colleagues found anything. So when I went back to him and explained that unfortunately we have not, at this point he dropped his nice guy facade and started yelling at me saying, "You don't have respect for what we do for you. I'm sure that you decided to keep the phone for you because you don't earn enough to afford one, you thief. I know it was you because you're the one that served us yesterday. You have to give me my phone back now." I looked at him astonished, still trying to comprehend what just happened, and I say, "Sir, as you know, our terrace is open to everyone, and we are not responsible for items you leave on the tables." Then he went on with, "Don't come at me with that BS. I know you pick up items from the tables when people leave them behind." Me, "Yes, that is if we spot them. Unfortunately, yesterday was a really busy day, and we weren't able to keep up with the cleaning. so we didn't see what was left on your table. That is, of course, if anything was left there. CG didn't like my answer. How dare you call me a liar? I come here to eat every day, and you offer me this crappy service. I'm going to sue you unless you give me my phone back. Now! Me. I see that you don't understand. I can't give you something we don't have here. Fine. You wanted it, said as he stormed off. I thought that was it. My colleague looked at me surprised. The couple of locals sitting at the counter drinking their beer were also confused. I just got my coffee and went for a break. A day had passed, and as I was doing the closing shift, we closed the restaurant at 11 p.m. and this guy shows up 5 minutes before. Have you found my phone yet? I told you that I can't find something that isn't here. Suddenly, he decided to act calm. I'm not interested in the phone itself, but on it I had pictures of my kids and our trips. If I don't get it back, I will lose that. Me. That is really sad. I wish I could help you with that. Trust me, if I would have found the phone, you would get it back. Dropping his act. CG. You clearly don't care about customer service. You only care about the money. You took my phone and sold it somewhere. I want you to give me my phone back, now, or I'll take legal action. At this point, I was done with this guy. Me. Perfect. Go ahead. As long as you leave now, because it's past closing time. He left quickly, mumbling under his nose. Next day was Sunday. I came to the restaurant for my evening shift, knowing that the next day I had to open too. Usually this doesn't happen unless it's an emergency, because it requires the person that closes the inn to sleep at most 4 hours, because we open at 6 a.m. and closing requires you to stay a couple of hours after closing to get everything ready for the next day. On Sundays is also when the owner of the company comes to eat lunch here with his family. He usually sits close to the register to keep a track on everything and make sure that there's no problems. It's a really calm day. We only have a couple of tables in the restaurant, plus the owner's table. 30 minutes into the shift, CG appears again. He goes straight to the counter and starts his sermon. Are you ready to give me my phone back? Me. I keep on telling you for the last 3 days, we don't have your phone here. If you left it outside, it's your fault. You're all going to regret this. I know the chief of the police. He's going to send the whole CSI here, and they'll find my phone. Your restaurant is going to be closed down. You all are going to regret this. That is, unless you give me the phone. Do you want me to go there as I leave from here? Done with his crap, yet still keeping calm. Me. Look, I don't know what you want to do with your free time when you leave from here. I can barely control what you do when you're inside. If you want to go to the police, go ahead. Just leave and stop disturbing my customers. He storms off, slamming the door behind him. As I turn around and sigh, the owner gets up and comes to me. He asks me quietly to come with him to the kitchen. Once there, he asks me what this was all about. So I explain to him what had happened the last few days. He then says, with a tone of a father trying to cheer up his kid, Owner, you handled it really professionally. I'm glad to have you here. Don't worry about that guy. You haven't done anything bad. If he actually goes to the police, you have no need to talk with them. You're just a worker here. Just give them the number of your manager, and don't make any statements if you don't want to. It's the management's job to deal with it. A few minutes later, the owner left with his family, and my colleague and I returned to our jobs. 2 hours later, the front door opens, and 2 police officers, with clear signs of being annoyed for having to leave their desks to deal with something, enter the restaurant. They come to the counter, and I approach them. Officer, do you know what we are here for? Me. I have a slight idea, but it will be better if you state it, officer. We received a complaint that a phone got stolen here. Me. If you refer to the guy that continues to claim that we stole his phone, no one in the restaurant has an idea what phone he's talking about. Officer. Well, the problem is that the phone has to appear and to be returned to him, or else someone will have to be charged with theft and illegal appropriation. At this point, I've seen where this was headed, and I was too tired of dealing with this matter. Me. Look, officer, I'm just a simple worker here. Since you're threatening the company with legal charges, I will give you the phone number of my manager. I will not say anything else regarding this matter to you. I gave them the number. They thanked me and left. I poured myself some coffee and started to drink it. One of my usual customers sitting at the counter looked at me and said jokingly with his half-drunk voice, You're gonna go to jail, the fallen Polish. We laughed for a moment and I went back to work. Fortunately, CG didn't come back anymore and no more police came that day. I seriously thought I had finally got rid of the guy. Silly me. Next day, I get to the inn with 4 hours of sleep and get everything started up. My usual 6 a.m. customers are there sipping their coffee, and suddenly the doors open and there he is, CG. He comes up to me. I hear one of the guys at the counter say, "Not him again." CG. "So, did you like the police visit? Are you going to give me my phone back?" Me. "Can you just get over it? I can't give you something I don't have. I keep on telling you this since last week." CG. "I'm going to tell everyone not to come here. All you do is steal from your customers. I'm going to get you fired, to get your restaurant closed. I will tell all my colleagues to stop coming here if they don't want to get robbed. I have connections in the newspaper and TV stations. The whole country will know that you steal from your customers. You are going to get cancelled." And he left. I just dropped my hands and sighed. The same customer from yesterday said, "The fallen Polish. Seems like you're gonna be famous." I laughed and continued with my duties. At 9 a.m., my manager came to work. As he was checking the booking in the system, I approached him. Me. "The guy from the phone was here this morning again. He said that he'll go with the story to all the newspapers and TV, that he'll make sure everyone knows how we treat our customers." My manager looked at me and started laughing. "That's great. Free advertising for us." We never heard of him again. The ambulance crews kept coming, and his threats remained that. Just threats. Now I know it's long, but I thought that it would be nice to share this with you all. I'm officially done. Yesterday I had made plans in advance, relying on me getting out at 3 p.m. from an opening shift, 10:15 to 3 p.m. The reason I was able to plan this is because I can see everyone's schedules both online and on the paper copy. My replacement was supposed to be there at 3, meaning I could easily get out at 3:05, if not before. That was until my replacement called out at 1:30 p.m. yesterday. I told the manager on the floor that I could only work what I was originally intended to, and she said she'd try her best. It has always been the precedent that as a busser, if your side work is done and your replacement is here, you can leave after checking out with a manager. The floor manager eventually got someone to come in earlier, which meant that I should have been able to go without an issue. 3 p.m. rolls around, and I check out with my busser coworker who I'm leaving behind, and go to a different manager to check out. She then proceeds to argue with me about how "No, that's not how we roll," and she's trying to keep me there. I proceed to stand my ground, and she calls in the general manager. The general manager has me come into her office and sit down. They apparently expected me to suddenly work 2 more hours on the fly without even asking me. General manager: "So, I heard that you were intending to leave at 3. Why did you make plans?" Me: "Because I could see everyone's schedules, so my replacement was due to come in at 3 and planned accordingly." "So, you just assumed you would be getting off at 3? "I guess." "Did you call a manager to see when exactly you were to be off?" "No." I was astounded that I had to even think of calling a manager just to see when I would get off. I don't think management would want all of us constantly calling to make sure we'd be off anytime we want to make after-work plans. GM: "Okay, so you assumed you'd be getting off at 3. You know that isn't how our schedules work. Just because it says 10:15 to 3 p.m. doesn't mean you'd be getting off at 3. This really threw me for a loop, because then why bother printing schedules in the first place? You sit here and wonder why people are upset with their schedules when you don't even follow them yourself? I don't say anything. "The best I can do is to get you out of here at 4 p.m. Me: "That won't work." GM: "Have a little bit of compassion. Your coworker's grandmother just passed. You were in a sticky situation too, and people took up for you." This is a reference to when I had to escape a horrible situation and was unable to work. Me: "I am truly sorry, but I cannot cover for him." "So, you're saying you have to leave right now? Are you sure you want to deal with the consequences?" "Yes." "All right, this will be your final written warning. This cannot happen again." "Okay." "I'm very disappointed in you. I thought you had a great work ethic. You were mature and responsible. Now my opinion of you has been changed, probably permanently." "Okay, that's fine." "You're free to go." I'm going to be putting in my 2 weeks Tuesday, along with a written letter disputing the write-up. They tried to get me to sign the write-up, but I declined and said I had a response in writing that I will be submitting. They frustratedly agreed and let me continue my shift tonight. I'm 16. I don't have a car or a license, and my ride was waiting for me. I couldn't have just told them to wait another 2 hours. Karen wife constantly lies about me. I finally called her out on it. My wife has been lying a lot lately. She's overly conscious of other people's feelings, and she uses white lies to shift the blame onto others to lessen the blow of a situation, always to her benefit. She will find herself in situations where she wants to back out of weekend plans with her friends or explain why she did something seemingly rude, etc. But she always blames me. My husband doesn't want me to leave this weekend. Sorry, he's such a jerk. Or, I only screenshotted this conversation we had because my husband told me he wanted to see it. Sure, I can handle someone confronting me about this stuff far better than she can. She has high anxiety when it comes to confrontation, but I'm really sick of being her scapegoat and letting people think I'm a selfish jerk. I was watching our kids this weekend while my wife hosted a bachelorette trip for her friend at my wife's aunt's lake house. Last night, my wife calls me and says I can come over with the kids rather than wait till early this morning like planned. I get to the lake house and the girls are all still out at a bar somewhere, so I let myself in and put the kids to bed. My wife's aunt texts her after seeing me on her security camera and tells her that she's upset that I was there. That's weird to me because she and I get along very well, and I'm even renting a house from her. She has really high anxiety, but she manages it well most of the time. She then texts me this morning and begins yelling at me about how I had no right to invite myself over and that I'm a bad father. Naturally, I was shocked and asked her what she meant. Turns out, my wife texted her saying she didn't know I was coming and that I'm an incompetent father and she had to help me because I didn't know how to watch my own kids. I told her that that was not true and that my wife invited me to come because she knew it was closer to my work and I could sleep in rather than get up early to bring the kids. I, of course, confronted my wife about why she would lie about me and say things like that about me. She then gets mad and says she was doing damage control on the situation and that it's far better if her aunt is mad at me than her. So now we're fighting because I, of course, don't appreciate being put in that situation. But my wife thinks it was a necessary sacrifice to keep her aunt happy with her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. I dare you to lie about me, Reddit boy. I'll pop that head of yours like a balloon. My ex-wife, Karen, refuses to let our kids have pets. I'm divorced 6 years and remarried 2 years. I have 2 sons with my ex, who are 11 and 13, both male. My wife has 1 son who's 9, male. My kid's mom lives less than a mile away. It's close enough for the kids to walk over, but far enough to be separate space. My boys move back and forth between their moms and my house usually once a week. We're flexible, especially during the summer because of travel, kid activities, etc. My wife's son lives with us full time. My wife and I have been talking with the kids about getting a pet that they would personally be responsible for at our house. This has been going on since December, and we told the kids we would finally get the pets when all of our summer travel was done. Since then, the kids have been excited about the prospect of having their own pets. We asked them to research their chosen pet, determine what its needs were and what kind of common health problems that kind of pet could have, and how to avoid them. The kids all presented their reports and did an awesome job starting out as responsible pet owners. My kids started thinking about how they would take care of their pets when they were with their mom. We presented their options as we saw them. Come over from time to time, ask for help from someone that's here all the time, bring the pets back and forth. They decided they would like it best if they could bring their pets back and forth between the houses. We said that it would be okay with us, but they had to talk to their mom about it. I let them know that it was their responsibility to initiate that conversation. 2 weeks ago, I reach out to my ex to see what her answer is regarding the pets moving back and forth. She lets me know how the kids approached that conversation, saying, "Dad says we can bring the pets back and forth." I apologize and let her know that that wasn't my intent. I clarify that we're fine with any of their 3 options for caring for these pets. She replies, "In concept, I don't disagree with it." And also later in the conversation, "It's totally unfair to expect me to secondarily be responsible for these pets." I'm confused, but leave that conversation feeling certain that she doesn't want to participate. So I decide that I will take care of the pets while the boys are away. Yesterday, we bought the youngest 2 their pets. They are ecstatic, and it's adorable how they're caring for them. I get an angry message from my ex stating that the purchase of their pets is an imposition on them, regardless of whether they go to their house or not, and a bit of patronizing. "I understand that you and your wife are excited about having an autonomous family unit of your own, but you continually make decisions together in a vacuum that impact the wider scope of immediate family, and it's really not okay. Am I the jerk for buying these pets without her approval? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know. The most important question of them all, what kind of pets? Dress for the job you want, not the job you have. The management company that oversees my apartment building has always been total crap. Packages go missing from the mailroom, repairs take forever, staff are unfriendly, not at all worth what we pay in fees. There was only one solid employee, and he almost made up for everyone else's incompetence. The janitor, Ruan. He kept everything sparkling clean and even pitched in when the other people slacked off, helping with repairs, ID checking in the lobby, and more, just because he took pride in the building. Then the corporate oversight of the management company changed, and the new boss was having all the properties inspected to do a quality spot check on the individual building managers. Our manager, the winner that he is, decided that the best course of action would be not to come in the day of the oversight visit so that it would have to be canceled. The hope was that the checker would just inspect what he could without the manager on site, which wasn't much since he'd have already made the trip out there. My apartment has terrible cell reception and no AC, so I spend a ton of time downstairs in the lobby, which has both. I was able to overhear most of the planning for this visit as a result. Our janitor, Ruan, knew too, and he was spiffing everything up like new in excitement. Fixing a few broken things the repair guy ignored, and even bringing in fresh-cut flowers to the lobby out of his own pocket. Ruan dressed up in a collared shirt and khakis for the visit. He didn't know the manager was bailing. I just heard it hanging out in the lobby late one night. So when the corporate inspector arrived, Ruan was the only guy he saw. He was dressed up, so the inspector shook his hand and started rattling off the things he wanted shown to him. Ruan knows this building better than anyone else on the staff, so you could tell he was a little overwhelmed at being seen as the point person, but he knew the answers to every one of the inspector's questions. Meanwhile, a few tenants and contractors who frequent the building passed and all knew Ruan, brought him concerns about their apartments. Those on the staff who knew he was being inspected even made a point to say, "Yeah, Ruan's the guy if you've got a problem." So the end of the inspection must have come because they recongregated in the lobby. The inspector told Ruan he wanted to get his full name so he could make a note in his employee file of how well he's run the building so far, and that he'd meet with him later in the week to discuss fixes for the problems he found. Ruan, shocked, is like, "You want to meet with me again?" And the inspector is like, "Sure, I'm looking forward to a long working relationship. I like to meet with each building once a month. Sorry, what was your name again for the file?" Ruan told him, and the inspector goes, "Oh, hold on. I thought someone called Eddie was the manager here." And Ruan explained, clearly embarrassed and scared he had done something wrong, that he is not the manager. The manager didn't come in today. The inspector then went and spoke with a few people in the building on his own, while Ruan absolutely lost his crap in the lobby, thinking he was going to be fired or get the building censured or something. Eventually, the inspector comes back and he sits Ruan down and tells him he might not be manager in title, but he's manager in action, so if he wants it, he's got a new job. The man cried. Ruan's been working as a contractor through a janitorial service, not directly for the building, so no benefits, considered part-time, very little job security or support, and he had just gone from that to a cushy office job in the building he loves in the blink of an eye. I was sitting on the couch a few spaces down from them. The lobby has a sitting area with tables and chairs and couches, and I felt compelled to ask, before anyone got too excited, "Hey, excuse me, can you do that? Or could someone veto this?" Because I hated to think Ruan would be so excited only to have some sort of bureaucracy or old boys club shoot down his promised opportunity. The inspector turns to me and informs me he's the new COO of the management company, and final hiring decisions are at his sole discretion. Then he asked who I was, and I basically said, I was just leaving, and I buzzed off out of there before my big mouth complicated things any further. This week, Ruan started officially. We've got flowers in the lobby every day now, and a dripping faucet I've been waiting 6 weeks to have fixed is scheduled for repair on Thursday. He didn't work there, but he does now. Insane Bridezilla meltdown. About 5 years ago, our hotel's owners remodeled. One of the most popular room combos is a suite/double-double at the end of the hall. The rooms do not adjoin, but the rooms are next to each other, located at the T at the end of a hall. with a door in the hall that closes the rooms off, making a mega suite, if you will. The double-double is just your standard double-double, but the suite is actually kinda neato. Sofa bed and 2 comfy chairs in the living room, wet bar, dining table, half bath off the living room, and very pretty full bath off the bedroom, with a vanity and a claw foot rub. What the owners thought was a good idea and retreat for families has become super popular with bridal parties. The half bath in the suite, we are told, is genius, and the full bath makes for some very nice getting ready pictures. So, about 3 months ago, my coworker books suite/double-double at the end of the hall for a bridal party. The person making the reservation, who I will call Bridezilla from here on out for obvious reasons to unfold, requests an early check-in explaining it's for a wedding. My coworker states that we are happy to put down the request, but it is only that, a request. We will not and absolutely cannot guarantee an early check-in, even for a wedding. Bridezilla asks how to guarantee an early check-in, and she is informed the only way to guarantee is to book the night before. Bridezilla scoffs at the idea of paying for a full night when she just needs a few hours, and coworker tells her that most of our brides actually do book the night before and stay with us to relax and get a good night's sleep before the big day, with an added bonus of not having to rush to the location in the morning. Bridezilla gets all snotty and tells coworker not to bother with the night before, and we are just trying to scam her, and she will get her early check-in. And at least once a week since the reservation was booked, Bridezilla has called to make sure we know about her request. And wouldn't you know it, about a month before the wedding, a family books those rooms, checking out on Bridezilla's wedding day. After the family books their reservation, Bridezilla calls again, reminding us of her request, and we let her know that she may want to come up with a backup plan, that we would be happy to attempt an early check-in, but the only way that it's going to happen is if by some small, microscopic miracle, the family checks out very early. But they have until checkout at noon, and her reservation does not technically start until 3 p.m. We're like, hey, we really do not think we can get you in early. We allow cancellations and changes up until 48 hours prior to arrival, so if you need to cancel and book elsewhere, we completely understand and best wishes on your special day. She tells us that the family will check out early, and we will send housekeeping over immediately after checkout to clean, and it better be spotless. We tell her that is not how any of that is going to work, that the family has until noon, and housekeeping would be happy to attend to the room right after checkout if and only if they are currently attending to rooms on that floor, in that area. Our housekeeping staff has a system and we do not mess with it. Period. No exceptions ever. You simply do not tell these overworked, underpaid, amazing coworkers how to do their jobs. Day of the wedding arrives, and so does Bridezilla at 10 a.m. She steps up to the front desk, and guess what? The room is still occupied. She just starts shaking her head and tells us, no, she's checking in now. Hair and makeup will be here in an hour, and she needs to shower, and she checked over and over again, and we had her request, right? We knew about her request. Just do what she requested. We tell her, yes, we have her request. It was a request, not a guarantee. There's nothing we can do but wait at this point. She pulls out her phone and starts to dial, screaming to people that the room is not ready. In the middle of this, someone who I can only assume was a bridesmaid shows up, talks to Bridezilla, and comes to the desk asking why there is a holdup. We tell bridesmaid there is no holdup. Bridezilla booked the room for tonight. Check-in is at 3 p.m. Room will be ready at 3 p.m. Bridesmaid says, no, you said we could get an early check-in. We tell her no. We could put in a request for an early check-in, that we warned Bridezilla since day one that we cannot guarantee an early check-in, and warned her about a month ago that a backup plan would be a very good idea, since the room is currently occupied. Bridesmaid asks what we can do, and I tell her to wait. We cannot kick the guests in the room out. They paid for it until noon. Bridesmaid says, yeah, I guess not. Problem is, wedding starts at 3 p.m. I need to have a little talk with the bride. Bridesmaid goes back to Bridezilla, and they begin to have a very animated whisper argument. Father of the bride walks in, and Bridezilla tells him to tell us to let her into the room. He rolls his eyes and asks us what the problem was. We inform him that there is no problem. Early check-in again was a request, not a guarantee. That we offered to book her in the room the night before, but she refused. That she booked the room for tonight. check-in is at 3 p.m. Room will be ready at 3 p.m. He said that is not what we told his daughter. We tell him yes, that is exactly what we told his daughter, and we have the recording to prove it. Dad goes back to Bridezilla and tears her a new one, asking how she could be so stupid as to let the whole day hang on a maybe. She said she didn't want to pay the extra money. He shouts back, "When it's this important, you pay the extra money for the guarantee." And if she hadn't been such a stubborn brat, she'd be in the room and her brother wouldn't have been left to sleep in his car last night. She runs to the desk and yells at us to give her the key, knocks down the stand with the tourist brochures next to the desk, runs up the stairs and in the direction of where I guess she thinks the room is, knocks on the door of what she thinks is her room, and demands that the guest in that room let her inside, demanding that all of us just let her into the room. While the meltdown is taking place, bridesmaid asks if there's a bathroom or a dressing room, anything that they can borrow to start getting ready. We offer a small conference room that has a bathroom attached. Dad picks up Bridezilla and tosses her into the conference room where hair and makeup is beginning to set up. Bridezilla keeps saying, "I wasn't gonna pay for the whole extra night, Dad. I didn't need a night. I just needed a few hours." Dad says he cannot wait for this day to be over because maybe he'll get his daughter back, and if not, she's someone else's problem now. The rest of the preparation seems to go okay. They leave for the wedding. We place their bags in the room at 3 p.m. And I also clock out for the night. The next morning I walk in, excited for gossip and news on what happened when the bridal party came back after the wedding. There was none. Entire party came back completely hammered. They stumbled back to their rooms with barely a peep. We have a silly tradition of delivering champagne and chocolate-covered strawberries up to the bride and groom when they arrive back after the wedding. Room service went to deliver. We were expecting no tip and attitude from the bride. They tipped well, and she burst into tears about how nice we are here, and isn't it nice that we are so nice. They didn't even come to the desk to check out, used the TV to check out, and left the keys in the room. But guess who had to clean up and reorganize the brochures? Yup, me. Couple comes in 10 minutes before closing, but they don't want to be rushed. One night, we had a couple walk in 10 minutes before closing. Host is asked if we are still serving. 8:50 p.m. Host: "Yes, for 10 more minutes. We can seat you, but we need you to order quickly." Couple: "That's fine, whichever is your quietest table." Server was not happy, but accepted it. Immediately started with bread and water. 8:55 p.m. Asked if they were ready to order. Couple: "We need a few more minutes." Server: "Well, the kitchen is closing in 5 minutes. I will give you a minute and we'll be back." The restaurant is down to a few tables just drinking coffee, having dessert, and settling their bills. Server warns the kitchen 2 last entrees and maybe an app or dessert. Kitchen guys are not happy, but at least starting some of their closing duties. 8:56 p.m. Server returns 1 minute later. Server: "What will you have?" Couple: "What do you recommend?" Server: "I recommend coffee and dessert since it's closing time." With a straight face. I'm nearby helping a host and a bartender with closing duties as I watch this table from a few feet away. Couple: "We're thinking that we would like to first start with wine and appetizers. When you bring the appetizer, we will have decided what entrees we would like." Server: "I'm very sorry, but the kitchen closes in a minute. I need your whole order now, otherwise there won't be any dinner tonight." Couple: "There is no need to rush us. We are having a special date. We came out this hour because it's quiet and romantic." Server is not having it. Now I'm nearby if I have to step in. The couple gets the message from the look on the server's face. They fortunately asked for 2 prime ribs medium, which is basically cut, grill, and serve. Their sides and 2 glasses of wine. 8:59 p.m. Server tells them a couple of minutes for their entrees will be out, 5 minutes to be exact. Gets them their drinks. Server asks one last time, will there be anything else tonight? They barely acknowledge the server, but say there won't be. 9:05 p.m. Once the server drops off the entrees and double checks if there was anything else, just a no and a thank you for the food. Server drops the check off and tells them good night, and my manager will come back in a few to run the bill. Server comes back to start the checkout process, but tells them I will transfer the check to the bar so that they don't have to stay any longer than they have to. I would make sure their tip would be saved and put in the safe for safekeeping for next shift. 9:30 p.m. Doors are locked. Bar is cleaning up. Host and server are checking out for the night. Bussers are cleaning the other side of the restaurant. Kitchen is almost done, sweeping, mopping, and trash. aiming to be out by 1 hour past closing. 9:45 p.m. Check the table, still eating. Bar is now clean and checking out with me. Bussers are just setting up for the next day and waiting for that table. Kitchen is clean, checked out, and clocked out. Server and host are already gone for the night. One busser has left since they had started earlier. I check the table with busser and get the check and close out. Couple.
That was delicious, but we're thinking maybe dessert and some coffee. What do you have on the menu?
Me. I'm very sorry, but our kitchen has been closed for a while. I will need to close the check and see you out. Couple. We were looking forward to dessert. I just stand and wait. Busser right next to me. The man of the couple gets the hint and finally produces his wallet, looks over the bill and hands it over. Busser immediately clears the table. I run the card and return back with his copy and signature to close it out. I ask for the signature so I can finish the transaction. Man seems perturbed I'm rushing him. I walk to my bartender, have him close it, and start his paperwork. 9:55 p.m. Table is clear, but they have still not left. I politely ask the couple, it's time to go. Walk them to the door. The man starts to complain about how they've never been so rushed and probably will not be coming back. He's saying this as they're walking out the door. I hold the door as I say, I'm sorry you felt rushed, but next time, come in at an appropriate time to have dinner, not 10 minutes before closing. Good night. I close the door, which has frosted glass. I can see the man now screaming and yelling at me. I turn off the outside and host stand lights. Walked away to finish with the busser and bartender as I see the man banging on the door in the dark. Would you ever go somewhere just as it was about to close or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for saying my family necklace will go to my birth daughter instead of my adoptive daughter? I, 30 female, just had a baby, Lily, a few months ago with my husband, 31 male. I have a son from a past marriage, 12, Jack, and my husband adopted a girl, 14, Emily, about 3 years ago. Edit to add, I forgot to mention I married my husband about 1.5 years ago. I love my adoptive daughter so much and I try to be a mother figure to her. She doesn't call me mom and isn't very interested in spending time together, which I respect because she's been through a lot, but I still make a point to include her in discussions and try to spend special one-on-one time with her. I have a necklace that has been in my family for a few generations. First one to have it was my great-grandma. She received it on her wedding day, so now it's given to the oldest daughter on her wedding day, which is when I received it. It's very beautiful and priceless, and I keep it in a special box that stays locked up with a key. My family is aware of this necklace, and my kids have seen it and know the significance. We were having a get-together with family because you know what is finally allowing it. My grandma started asking about the necklace and if it will continue the tradition and go to Lily someday, which I said yes to. My husband, who was half listening, turned and said, "Shouldn't it go to Emily?" I didn't want to discuss this in front of our family, so I smiled and said we could talk about it later. My husband kept pushing it, and Emily heard her name, so she became involved with the conversation as well. My mom said that the necklace obviously should go to Lily because she is blood family, which I later told her was a very inconsiderate thing to say in front of Emily. I didn't really voice an opinion one way or another, but I did agree that it makes sense to go to Lily. Emily hates arguments and raised voices, so she said, "I wouldn't want your stupid necklace anyways," and ran inside crying. My husband went to talk to her. My family thinks that Lily deserves the necklace, and while it is sad for Emily, she is old enough to understand the differences. I really love Emily, and I don't ever want to hurt her, but I agree that this necklace might mean more to Lily since it will be from her direct heritage. Emily also has her own items that her mother gave her. I suggested to Emily that she and I go pick out a necklace together for her, just the two of us, but she refused and isn't talking to me. My husband doesn't want to get in the middle of this because it's my necklace and my decision, but I can tell he feels disappointed that I would consider choosing Lily over Emily. My other worry is if Emily gets the necklace, Lily will find out in the future from my family and might get upset. Please let me know if I'm in the wrong here. I really don't know how to solve this. Edit for clarification. I've seen a lot of comments here misinterpreting the situation. I'm not against giving Emily the necklace. I worry about her not valuing it because right now she doesn't want to be a part of my family. If Lily grows up and doesn't value it, she won't get it either. So my question is more, am I the jerk for automatically thinking my birth daughter would value the necklace more? I also did not adopt Emily when we got married, which she barely agreed to, but it still hasn't changed our relationship. Edit. Thank you for all the comments. I read through them all and there were mixed messages, but I know that the conversation should never have happened. We are going to table the necklace discussion for now and decide later if there's anything we want to happen to it. The current plan is to buy each of our kids, including my son, a special gift on their wedding day. The necklace will either be kept in my possession or go to my younger sister, who thinks we should take turns with it anyways, who is currently pregnant and could give it to her kid. I realize that I struggle a lot with Emily with trying to have a relationship with her, but I need to just continue and make sure she gets as much love as she can. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk to Emily and tell her I never meant to upset her and that I love her just as much as Lily, regardless of a silly tradition. I will keep trying to see if she wants to spend time with me, and hopefully someday she will want a relationship. Thank you all for your advice and votes. I hope that this can help our struggling little family. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you give the necklace to Emily or Lily? Please let us know. I've got a solution. Just give it to me. Remake the whole order? You got it. Worked at a crazy popular restaurant with a huge outdoor deck on the ocean. It was a river leading to the ocean, but as we said in the South at the time, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. This place was right next to the cruise ship terminal, so we had literally watched thousands of people disembark and hundreds head for our restaurant at the same time. Needless to say, we'd be packed with a line out the door at these times. A group of 6 comes in.
And we want to sit on the ocean.
Okay, you and everybody else. I tell them it's a 30 to 45 minute wait unless they want to eat indoors, which is quicker. They grumble, but they can see we're swamped and begrudgingly accept the pager I give them, insisting they need to sit on the ocean. You're willing to wait? No worries. I inform them that the ticket times right now are currently higher than normal, being that the cruise ship just dropped off hundreds of people. They say that's fine. Great, hang out over there and I'll buzz you. 20 minutes go by, and a younger lady with long and curly red-headed hair from the group approaches me at the front desk, waving the pager around. Is this thing broken? This thing must be broken. We've been waiting an hour. No you haven't. We have OpenTable, a reservation system that tracks your status in real time. I spin the computer around to show her that. In fact, you've been here literally 21 minutes, and you're going to have to wait at least another 10 to 20 more minutes. She throws a fit in front of some of the other guests in the lobby, but they're definitely not on Team Merida. Back to the waiting area she goes. We get them sat at a picnic table on the front water, prime real estate. It was about 40 minutes from when I quoted her, so I had 5 to spare. The rest of her group is happy with the spot and looks hungry and ready to order. I motion over their server, Leia, and say, let's get this order in quickly. Not good enough for her. She again complains that they've waited an hour. Nope, 40 minutes, and that they should get free appetizers at the very least. Now me, I will always admit a mistake on our part and make it right, but we quoted her, gave her the best table possible, and still came in under time. This is business as usual. But sometimes I'm a nice guy and realize people are hungry, low blood sugar, and need some love. So I ask her, have you ever had she crab soup? She looks bewildered and shakes her head. I say, I'm gonna bring you some she crab soup. The group orders appetizers and entrees at the same time. Leia asks if they want her to bring it all out together. No, they say. Bring the apps first, then fire the entrees. Leia does just that, and it takes about 20 plus minutes for them to come up. Since we have a problem child, I run the apps personally. Put fried green tomatoes, crab cakes, and of course, the delicious she crab soup on the tray. Run it out to them, drop the apps on the table, and like a scene in The Matrix, I watch one of Brave's curly red 10-inch hairs slow-mo fall from her own head into the bowl of soup I've just presented to her. She looks down and freaks out. Your hair is in the soup. This is disgusting. You need to remake this entire order. Y'all, I'm bald. I shave my head every day. You could pluck your eyebrows while looking at the back of my head. As gently as I can, I tell her I watched her own flowing, luxurious lock fall into the soup and insist it's not mine. She is in an outrage, calling me a liar and insisting that I did this on purpose because I didn't like her. She demands I remake the entire order. The rest of the table is uncomfortable, sees she's in a mini rage world, and insists it's fine. Let's just eat. Me? Nope. Yes, ma'am. And I scoop everything off the table onto my tray. Apps, beverages, plates, silverware. Let's start over, and hopefully we can get off on a new foot. By the way, I mentioned that ticket times were long as the cruise ship had just docked, so it may be a little while to get you a new course of appetizers. We'll do our best. As busy as we are, I'll have some new beverages out to you as soon as Leia slows down. I go into my kitchen and tell my slammed sous chef Brian that I needed a refire on that ticket. He is a loud and angry dude and initially screams at me. But on the plus side, he's also incredibly vindictive. So when I tell him, this one's about sending a message, he smiles and puts the ticket at the end of the line. 2 hours later, the table finished and left Leia a 30% tip. Guess who didn't pay the bill? Worst part of the story, she never got to try the she crab soup. Am I the jerk for not paying for my siblings to go to uni? I'm 29, female. My siblings are two 19-year-old females who are twins and 17-year-old male. About a year ago, I won a rather large amount of money. Since then, I paid off my mortgage, bought a rental home, paid for my parents to spend 2 months on holiday, paid off their mortgage, and bought each of my younger siblings either a car or, in the case of my brother, a motorbike. I have recently started planning my wedding to my partner of 4 years. Originally, we were going to have a very low-budget wedding because neither of us were particularly wealthy and have little financial support from our parents. But now we plan on having a slightly bigger wedding. However, during these discussions, my mother has been getting increasingly upset at the amount I'm spending. Wedding will be around $40,000 to $50,000 all up, including honeymoon, and partner is contributing $12,000, so it's not like we're spending an astronomical amount, and has repeatedly suggested that we stick to our low-budget plans and give money to her for my siblings' college funds instead. These comments have been confusing me because she's told me in the past that she got $20,000 when I was born to put away towards my college fund from her parents and then $10,000 for each of my siblings. I got through college on scholarships and my part-time job, so presumably she has $50,000 already from my siblings' college fund. This came to a head about a week ago when she came with me to go to my fitting for my wedding dress and she saw the price tag, $3,000. She had a complete meltdown in the store about me wasting money and how she needed it, and I confronted her about the college fund. She admitted that she and my dad had spent the money on trips away, alcohol, and gambling, and now there was nothing left. I said if she wasted $50,000 meant for her children's college funds, then why should I give her any more? At this point, she stormed out after throwing her glass of wine on my dress. That cost $300 to clean, and has since said that she's not coming to my wedding and will stop my dad and siblings from coming. Am I the jerk here? What would you do in this situation? Would you still have an expensive wedding? Or would you give your mom the money she's demanding instead? Please let us know. I got my stepsister Karen kicked out of school. I'm 15, female, and my stepsister is 17. We attend the same private high school. I'm in my second year. I skipped a grade, and she is in her first year. She's been held back for 2. Our school is very demanding. Last year, she was almost expelled for her low performance. She even had a meeting with the principal and teachers to decide if she would stay. I was chosen by our parents to vouch for her, but I refused to because I have a good reputation and I didn't want to lie to my teachers. She did face consequences for her low performance, but was given a second chance. This year, she was acting the exact same as last year, all the time, just on her phone and not even focusing in class. But last month, to everyone's surprise, she got an almost perfect grade on a paper. We were all happy for her, and stepmom even printed out her paper and put it on the fridge. I was a bit surprised by the topic she chose because it was the same topic I chose last year. I was curious and decided to read her paper during breakfast. It gave me an odd feeling when I was reading it. I get this weird feeling when I read something that I've already read before. But I had a lot on my plate already, and I just let it go. That same week, she got another good grade, but this time it was different. This story was about one of my personal favorite memories, and this time I recognized it immediately, so I confronted her right away. At first, she denied it, but I brought my notebook and showed her the exact same text. She admitted to it, but stepmom defended her, trying to say that I was lying. She got those grades because she had a problem with her notebook and I had lent her mine. Even my father was against me. They didn't punish her, and I was forbidden to report her. I was mad and I stopped speaking to them. A week later, I needed to use the sharing tool in my computer and realized she was using that to steal my work. At first, I just turned it off, but then I decided to make her get caught. I took the next 5 tasks that were her next ones and edited them. I took off citations, put a few insults here and there, put pure plagiarism, and turned sharing on again. Well, she got caught, and our parents and her had to attend an emergency meeting. She ended up confessing, and lied, telling them that I gave her my old work. I told them the truth, and they trusted me because I have a good reputation. She was expelled in the act. She's blaming me for everything. Our parents are furious with me, especially because it will be hard to find a new school for her now, and her record of failing 2 years plus an expulsion will do no good for her. I was fine with my conscience, but my favorite aunt told me I was wrong, and I should have just denied her access to my work, and it wasn't right to do this to family. So, people of the internet, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her stepsister? Please let us know. Worst parents of the year right here. The time a tenant had my car towed. About a year before the whole lockdown thing, I lost my government job. I am an audiologist, and so I had little doubt I would find work. But I also knew my best bet for top earnings as to work for myself. So I secured my financing, sold a bunch of stocks and mutual funds that had done pretty well, and set about finding a property. My plan was to open a practice, but buy a building that had rentable space to help bring in additional revenue stream. I eventually came upon this great little building in the heart of downtown with a nice big parking lot. The building was a former commercial garage. The giant bay doors where trucks used to come in and out of were replaced by these really nice walls full of windows that still open like garage doors but formed a covered space in front of the unit. This is relevant for later. I knew the property just from being around town, and I thought they looked really cool. They are crisp and modern, and in my opinion, have a cool Scandinavian feel to them. As I roll up to take my first tour with the realtor and the owner, I pull into the parking lot, as instructed, and the second I step out of my car, I see a woman rushing out of the building toward me. I'm wondering, is this the owner? Someone who works for the owner? No, it's a woman with a face full of piercings loudly telling me that I need to move my car now or it will be towed. I have a meeting here, I began. She would have none of it. Move it now or I call the police, she said. I was about to move my car when the realtor and the owner on the other side of the lot called over and began walking toward me. She immediately retreated before they got close enough for us to work all of this out. I clarified that I was okay to park there, and they confirmed it was fine. I asked who that was, and they told me that she owns one of the shops in the unit. Just ignore her, the owner said. She thinks she runs this place. And the realtor and owner shared a chuckle. I walk the property and we go over some things, and life is good. I get in my car and leave pretty convinced this is the place I need to buy. Because I also intended to house my practice there, I agreed to lease one of the units and start getting set up while all of the closing stuff that needed to happen could be completed. So for about 2 months, I was a tenant, just like all of the other tenants. I never really got into the fact that I was buying the building because my interactions with my neighbors were polite, but transactional. Well, mostly polite. The woman with all of the yelling, let's call her Megan, was none too pleased with my presence. She owned a store that sold custom-made, well, costumes, I suppose. Lots of steampunk outfits and period costumes that she makes herself. Impressive work though, honestly. I have to imagine she does most of her trade online since I seldom see people in her place. I was there not more than a week when she barged into my unit and began making sure I was aware that the parking lot was not for customers and was for them only, and I was only allotted one spot. I said, thanks, but I have parking all worked out with Gus, the owner. I appreciate your concern, and I showed her the door. The parking lot, which I was purchasing along with the building, has 60 spaces. There are 5 units. According to her, we are each allowed 1 parking space and no customers or visitors are permitted to park there at all. So I know there are either shenanigans afoot or this lady is lying to me. Anyway, I ignore her. Time passes. I close on the building. Gus sends out a heartwarming thank you email to all tenants saying he appreciates their years of business together, but that the property is now owned by my company name, LLC, of which I am the owner. Pretty clear stuff. The first thing I did was I did a reorg of the parking lot. Each unit gets 1 regular parking space, primo spots right next to the building. There are 2 15-minute loading spots back there as well. I designated the next 5 closest spaces to handicap parking. The rest was just parking. My long-term plan is to put in one of those automated parking kiosks so people who are there to patronize the business can park for free, but anyone else will have to pay. But that's down the road. For now, I just needed to formalize some stuff and just accept that I may have some people parking there illegally, and if it becomes a problem, I'll just have to hit the security cameras to see who's doing this. Anyway, Megan is furious. She's furious that there are not enough handicap spots. There were none before. She's upset that she needs more than 15 minutes for a loading zone. Who's timing it? She's upset most of all, however, because she was never consulted. Flash forward a few days, and I parked on a non-parking spot. The sidewalk in front of my building is privately owned. Basically, you turn off the public sidewalk and walk down the private sidewalk to where all the businesses are. I parked on a paved patch next to my unit, on the far side away from the public sidewalk, accessible only by my parking lot. I parked there, with every legal right to do so, by the way, because I was unloading equipment. Since I own the space I was parked on and everything around it, I didn't move my car right after. I walk outside and my car is gone, so I immediately assume someone stole my car. Then there's Megan standing in her doorway with a big grin on her face. I ask her if she knows anything about my missing car. "Oh, was that your car?" "I saw a car parked illegally, so I had it towed." I said, "Laugh it up. Any expense is getting added to your rent." I went to the tow company that the prior owner hired, and I laid into him for towing anything from my property without authorization. His argument was that he had a contact with the property. He did not. He had a contact with the company that formerly owned the building that was now null. In the end, I knew arguing would get me nowhere, so I paid him and took my car. I left really upset, and my mind was solely focused on revenge. I began really scrutinizing my security tapes and discovered that all of these unaccounted for vehicles in the parking lot all had something in common: Megan. I had a suspicion that she was selling parking in my lot, so I waited by one of the cars until the guy arrived. I told him, as he walked from an area that was not my building, that he was not authorized to park there. He looked confused and told me to mind my own business, and he pays for parking. I introduced myself as the owner of the lot and asked who he was paying and how much. The answer was Megan and $125 a month. Suddenly, her business made a lot more sense. I thought of confronting her. I thought of just straight up evicting her. Instead, I hired a security company. They set up a temporary booth at the entrance of the parking lot, and a guard ensured that everyone was there for one of the businesses. If someone parked and wandered off somewhere else, they were told that they were going to be towed. Anyone who claimed they were paying for parking would just be turned away. What followed was around 24 very angry people in Megan's store over the course of the week. They paid good money for those spots, and now she was pulling out the carpet. People were upset. Megan lays pretty low for a while. Then lockdown strikes, and we're all rightly in fear for our livelihood. As soon as it was legal, I told the tenants they could open the big garage door and have a covered outdoor space for their trade. This was a necessary thing to keep them open and was outside the scope of their lease, since they were not allowed to put in outdoor seating, etc. Everyone is super happy about this, except Megan. Megan's unit is flanked by a coffee shop on one side and a little specialty bakery on the other. So you now have to walk around an outdoor seating area to get into her store. It's the same situation for my unit, however, and it just isn't that big of a deal. Megan is fuming. She starts calling the police multiple times a day, every day, for supposed lockdown violations on my part and the part of the other tenants. This was after, by the way, I said absolutely nothing about her being in her store and working, even when non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed. The cops started coming after her third or fourth call. At this point, I had enough. Her lease was up last May, and so I non-renewed it. She threatened up and down that she was going to sue me, and when she was done, the whole building would be hers. I responded by suing her for the $125 a month she collected from all of those people for parking. Best of all, she just didn't show up to court, and so it resulted in a summary judgment in my favor. I don't expect I will collect, though she abandoned at least a few $1,000s worth of inventory and equipment when she left, so that will help. Not giving me the files I need? Okay, I'll do as you wish. I worked at a company, let's just call it us, as a hardware engineer. Customers would contract us to design, redesign, repair, analyze, etc. their projects and modules and so on. One day, a big long-term customer, we'll call the company ABC, called, and it went a bit something like this. ABC: "Hello, we have a module which is not working. Can you analyze and fix it?" Us: "Hello, ABC. Can you go into more detail? What exactly is not working? Is it hardware or software related?" ABC:
It's not working.
Us. Well, yeah, but what is not working?
It's not working.
All right. Can we have the technical document so that we can start analyzing them? ABC.
No can do. But here's the faulty module.
Me. How do you expect us to work on this module without having a clue what it's supposed to do?
You'll figure it out.
Okay, so basically this went on for about a week. After that, we just said okay. I asked my boss, since I was supposed to work on it, how I should go on with the task. My boss, crazy lovely guy he was, just said, "You heard them, we have to figure it out. So complete reverse engineering of the module, and make sure you write down every single minute you work on it." Small side note for the non-tech savvy people here. A reverse engineering process is the long and tedious process of tracing every single copper trace on a board, basically starting with the finished product with the goal to redraw the schematics for it. Think of it like having a meal with 5 courses and in the process of eating, figuring out the exact steps the cook took to make it. So I did as my boss said. I re-engineered the whole module, drawing my own schematics for it, figuring out the inner workings, even taking a ROM dump, basically deassembling the machine code into readable source codes and tracing down the workings of the software as well. This whole process took something like 4 to 5 months for me and 2 others, just reverse engineering this crazy module. After that, we finally started working on the errors and found out that there was a bug in the software causing the processor on the module to reboot like every 2 seconds. A bit of research showed that this module was part of an industrial controller system. Let's just say that if they were to put these modules anywhere in there, a lot of people would be without power. So after finding the error and fixing it by literally changing one line of code, writing the report and rescheduling a meeting with the client, I got back to my boss, who was following my working hours really carefully for the project. It turned out there were a lot of work hours for that project. Through the grapevines, I heard the total cost of the client was totaling well over $300,000. So the meeting began and we presented our findings, showed the whole process we did, including the reverse engineering. This time we spoke to different people as to the ones who gave us the project. This time, the CEO of ABC was within the meeting too. At first, he asked where we got the schematics because they didn't look like they were made with their templates. We told them that we weren't given the documents, so we had to re-engineer everything. Easy to say the CEO was livid. He immediately asked who told us that we couldn't get the documents. We told him. He thanked us, made sure we were paid 10% more than we billed, and hung up. The fallout came to us via an email from the CEO himself. He apologized to us that we had the hassle of re-engineering. Also said that if we ever have trouble like this again, we are free to contact him directly. Also, the guy who said, "You figure it out," apparently got fired on the spot. Least to say that even if it was a lot of work, I really have to grin every time I remember this. This happened about 3 years ago, and since then I quit the job to study to become a state-certified technician. After that, I will happily go back to the company since working there was a charm. Also, on a side note, after talking to the CEO of ABC and getting a few documents, we discovered that this software bug was over 9 years old in a safety first over anything else industrial controller system. Who would have thought? Also, as a lot of people can't get their head around the 10% overpay, I'm not the CEO of the client, so I don't know the exact reason. But in the sector I was working, a good relationship to your contractors is invaluable. Also, ABC Company wasn't really a small player, so it is definitely no big cut in their funds. But when employees messed up and made the contractors you worked with for years do extra work, which is utterly unnecessary, you might want to compensate them in order to keep relations good. It is nothing unusual, as I have heard of similar things from friends and even from other clients I worked really closely with. If you don't like it, you can quit. In high school during the late 90s, I was a server at a pizza chain with a red roof. At the time, this place had a dine-in service. We had a GM, Ray. Ray was a nice guy, but he was better on the business/financial side of the market than managing employees. People generally got their work done, but in retrospect, everybody that worked under him was young, and we probably didn't give him the respect he was due. Eventually, Barb showed up. She was an assistant manager from a nearby store that had closed. Barb wasn't like Ray. It was like she was hired to come in and crack a whip over all of us. Never a please or thank you for anything. Forget, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean out the walk-in fridge and rinse it from floor to ceiling. On Fridays and Saturdays, the restaurant didn't close until 1 a.m. These were generally the busiest nights. However, I was 16 to 17 at the time, and I walked to and from work. My parents said that under no circumstances did they want me working past 11 p.m. They didn't want me walking home after 1 a.m. and risk being hit by a drunk driver or some other idiot out at those hours. I had already been attacked by a homeless guy one Friday night that year. This limitation was written into my file by Ray. We had several other teen servers with similar scheduling limitations, but it was usually okay. Things started dying down at 11, and the adult servers were happy to take all the late tips themselves. One Friday, it's 9:45, and we're still swamped. Mean old Barb is managing. My tables are mostly wrapping up, so I inform Barb I need to come off the floor if she expected me to do any side work that night. She says to me that I need to keep serving and do my side work, and I can't leave until the side work is finished. I remind her that I must be out of the door at 11 p.m. If I'm not, there's a high likelihood my parents will make me quit this job, especially after I was attacked by that homeless guy. It's just too busy. If I take more tables, there's no way I can do side work. Plus, I just have to hand off those tables to the adult servers anyways, so there's really no point in me taking more tables. Barb blows up at me. She starts screaming loud enough for customers to hear about how kids these days are a bunch of babies and how she hates that helicopter parents won't let their kids do real work anymore. After that tirade, she says, "You have work that needs to be done. You need to stay and do it. I don't give a hoot what time it is. If you don't like it, you can quit." For some reason, her saying that felt like a smack to the forehead. I don't like this job. There are plenty of other minimum wage jobs I could be doing that would work with my schedule limitations. I'm a teen just doing this job for scratch money. Forget her. I reach into my server apron and move all my tips into my pants pocket. I untie the apron and place it on the front counter. Her eyes get huge, and all I remember coming from her was the screech of, "What? What are you doing?" I tell her I'm doing what she said. I don't like it, so I'm quitting. Cue more screeching. She's so loud the entire restaurant can hear her. At that point, I just turn around and walk out, letting the door of the restaurant close and muffle her screeching. I make it home before 11 p.m. Ray calls me the next day to get my side of the story. I explain everything. He says he understands, and he backs me up that she shouldn't have tried to make me stay. He asks if I could at least come in and work the Saturday dinner rush, but I told him I wouldn't set foot in that restaurant if Barb was there. He said that Barb was managing that night, so I chuckled and said, "Well, that's your problem." A week later, I get another phone call from Ray. Over the course of that week, Barb yelled at 2 other teen employees of the restaurant for similar reasons, causing one to quit. She apparently also nearly got into a fight with an adult server because she called that server a name and said she was going to slap the taste out of their mouth. The final nail in the coffin? 2 customers called to complain that their carry-out pizzas appeared to have cigarette ashes on them. Managers usually worked the registers at this store, which meant they also cut and boxed to-go orders. Apparently, on less busy nights, Barb would smoke while behind the counter. She was caught on video multiple times in one day with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth as she cut the pizzas. Suffice it to say, Barb got fired. Ray was calling everyone back that had quit to see if they wanted to come back. Me? I declined. I had already found a gravy gig working at an antique mall. I didn't make tips, but I made a better hourly rate, so the money was more consistent. Don't want to pay a sale price? Fine by me. I work for one of North America's largest aftermarket auto parts stores, one that begins with an N and has a blue and yellow logo. At this job, for a few times a year, we have what's called a bucket sale. This bucket sale acts as a marketing gimmick and is meant to entice people to buy more than what they need. If you have 3 or more items, you can fit them into a 5-gallon company-branded bucket, and the price of your entire order is reduced by 20%. In all honesty, it's a pretty good deal for what it is. The only caveat is that you're required to purchase the bucket for $2.99. Most customers that I mention this sale to are usually surprised and impressed by the generosity, especially since I don't follow the "at least 3 items must fit in the bucket" rule, as I prioritize getting a customer out of the door with a smile on their face. $200 battery? How about we make that $160? $50 headlight bulbs? Nah, forget that. Take them home for $35 and get a free bucket out of it. The reason that I say that most customers enjoy this is because there's a handful of customers who would either not deal with having to carry a large bucket with them or simply don't understand the proposition that I'm trying to offer. Fair enough, maybe they've had a tough day or don't want to be bothered with paying less for more. It's no skin off my back. Usually this isn't a problem, except for today. Not for a certain customer that I'll refer to as Karen. Karen walks into the store, is friendly throughout the entire exchange, and knows exactly what they want. This is always a pleasant experience, as I can't stand customers who dawdle around and only accept service on their own terms. As she's ready to make her purchase, the following exchange occurs. Me. Okay, so right now we're looking at a total of $68.98. However, if I sell you a bucket, your order drops down to $56.89. Karen. What do you mean? Why is it cheaper? Me. I have a store-wide sale that's in effect if you buy a bucket. But I don't want a bucket. I want this stuff. That's fine. You don't have to take one with you. But why would you still charge me for a bucket if I don't want it? It's policy. I can't complete this ticket under the sale price without incorporating the bucket. So why am I paying almost $70 when you just said the total was $56? Because I can't. Either way, I imagine you still want to buy this stuff. Not if you're going to try to rip me off by selling me an unnecessary bucket. Can I speak to your manager? So I get my manager and tell him what's going on before he talks with her. Manager has no patience for this kind of an attitude. Manager. Hi there, ready to go? Karen. Yes, but I don't want to buy a bucket. Manager. Okay, that'll be $68.98. Karen has hurt herself in confusion. But I want the sales price. You don't want the bucket, which means you don't get the sales price. Karen looks at the bucket pile. In frustration, she puts down a $100 bill. Manager, while dispersing her change. It's a good thing you didn't want that bucket. There wouldn't have been enough money to give you your change back. A dejected Karen then leaves the premises. Oh well, we tried to help her. Don't leave your department during shift. This happened back when I was 18 and 19, so best part of 15 years ago. I was working for one of the big 4 supermarkets in the UK, doing a 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift 4 nights a week. I was on the beer, wines, and spirits section. In the October, I went to the warehouse to get some more stock to put out, and the phone rang at the BWS section of the warehouse, which was behind a locked door, because theft. I answered it, and it was the store manager. The conversation went a bit like this. Manager. Ram, why aren't you in your department? Me. I'm getting more stock to put out. Manager. If we were fined £5,000 for you not being there, would you pay it? Me. Wouldn't it just be cheaper to have someone else working alongside me than pay a fine? I don't want you leaving that section during your shift, unless you have someone to cover. Me. So stay there all shift? Yes. Brilliant. Just brilliant. The first time in 18 months that manager stays late and has his shift overlap mine, he has a go at me for doing my job. Then I remembered that I was a lazy person and that I'd do what he said. So for the rest of my shift, I just stayed in the BWS section. Didn't get anybody to cover at all. At the start of my shift, everybody else was on checkouts, and the late crew were never willing to lend a hand. So it started in October, then November. Maybe a few £100 in lost sales every night, and a backlog of stock that would have to be sorted out the next morning. Then came the best part, December. As you might know, people like a tipple around Christmas in New York. Supermarkets also like to put offers on drinks around that time too. I wasn't allowed to get more stock to put out, so certain drinks all sold out. I knew there was plenty of this stuff in the back, but I wasn't going to disobey manager, especially when I'd been doing such a good job until now. So those few £100 a night turned into thousands a night. I estimated that, in the week leading up to Christmas, I'd cost the store around £50,000 in 20 hours. That wasn't solely from lost drink sales, but the number of people who just dumped their trolleys, shopping carts, and left without buying anything. New Year passed with the same story, and Valentine's Day, and the entirety of March. Then, 2 weeks before Easter, manager stayed late to talk to me. Didn't bother when we were losing loads of sales, only in the few months before his contract renewal. Manager. Why haven't you been putting stock out for the last 6 months? Me. You told me not to.
Why haven't you had anyone else cover?
Me. I tried, but Knights weren't interested.
So why didn't you just go and get any stock?
You told me not to.
I didn't mean it literally.
So then why did you say it? During that conversation, he didn't explicitly tell me to change what I was doing, so I didn't. Easter passed, as did his contract renewal date. At the start of June, the former deputy manager was now the store manager. The ex-deputy manager stayed late to talk to me on her second week in her new position and told me to go back to doing what I was supposed to be doing. I said, "Okay, Mum," and went straight into the warehouse. I forgot to mention that my mum was the deputy manager and hated the store manager because of how he treated the younger members of staff, and says she let regional management know about it at the annual review. Reading the menu. I work at a casual sports bar in the lovely state of Florida. We get a nice mix of locals and tourists, and things tend to run pretty smoothly. This week has me wondering if some of our adult guests can actually read a menu though. I've never had so many similar instances happen in such a short period of time, and it really has me scratching my head. For background, we use a QR code that links directly to our menu. You don't need a special app, and it's pretty straightforward. We even have Wi-Fi, so there typically isn't any issue with the process. I will always walk a guest through it, or bring a paper menu upon request after greeting the table. Our draft beers are also posted on a chalkboard in huge font, all 75-ish of them. The website where our menu can be found is also typed under the QR code. I genuinely think our management did a wonderful job of making sure menus were easily accessible, while also trying to accommodate touch-free options. You can't please everyone, but we are really trying. This week, I've had a woman with both the digital and physical menu in front of her order the French onion soup. We do not carry any soup, nor have we ever. She argued with me. An older gentleman with a paper menu in his hand kept attempting to order different versions of sandwiches that all included deli meat. We do not carry any deli meat, and I verbally listed our available sandwiches. He decided on a BLT. Still not on the menu, but I gave up and asked a favor of the kitchen. It's like he was actively trying not to look at the menu. A younger, very polite man wanted me to list our beers on draft. I gestured to all 75, maybe more, and laughed, but explained how the board was set up. He then asked me to just list the IPAs. I then listed all 23 IPAs from lowest to highest because honestly, it wasn't busy, and I thought maybe he would have me stop when it got excessive. But no, I got through them all. He needed a minute because apparently it was a lot of information to take in. A couple ordered frozen strawberry daiquiris, and I explained that we do not have a blender, so no frozen drinks, but pointed them to our cocktail menu and suggested some fruity tropical options. Their next request was a mudslide. Another couple were super pleasant and their kids were sweet. Everything service-wise was great, and I wasn't expecting a curveball, but upon picking up their checkbook, I found a note about how it's ridiculous we charge for chocolate milk for kids. It's listed as an upcharge on the kids menu, but their kids didn't even order off the kids menu. Of course it's going to cost something. A group of ladies were shocked that I didn't warn them that happy hour didn't apply on the weekend. They didn't ask about happy hour and didn't even order anything that would have been included on it, given it were the correct day and time. Maybe I just had a long weekend and I'm being dramatic, but why would we bother with the menu if it didn't matter? Just look at it. Thank you for listening to my rant.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.